and gentlemen, let's go. We ain't got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
So, with the 29th pick in the 2022 Fade the Noise NFL Mock Draft, James Anderson, the Kansas City Chiefs select who? James Anderson join us right now on Sports Radio 810 in Kansas City. James, let's talk running backs.
Yeah, excellent stuff. James, we're up against it. We appreciate the time, my man. Fantastic insight and information. We're looking forward to talking to you down the road. Enjoy the draft.
Absolutely, man. You guys too, anytime.
All right, there he goes. James Anderson, host of the Zone Midday Sports Radio 810 in KC.
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Tuesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe and Drake. The Zone presented by Google Fiber. Award-winning internet without data caps, annual contracts, or hidden fees. We'll talk some football coming up at 11 o'clock with Adam Teicher from ESPN. We'll talk some baseball with Les Norman, breaking the norm, coming up at noon. Todd Lebo on a little vacation, so 1 o'clock hour just wide open. I don't know, there's so much room for activity. We'll see what we can do in the 1 o'clock hour, have a little fun there, as typically we do that with Todd Lebo, but he is out this week, getting his R&R before the NFL draft next week, when everybody is going to be working and having fun and enjoying the week and partying and all of that, while the NFL draft and the NFL turns their attention to Kansas City and the first round on Thursday night with those 31 picks. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation. 913-912-4810 to join us today. Josh, I'm told we're back on video.
Yes, well, and look, I'm going to say that we're there. I've seen video. I verified some audio, but I do believe that this extra and truly special dimension of the show is back, at least on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook and Twitch. I think we're on YouTube. Twitter might not be there right now. We're working on it, but we're getting back on our feet on the video side, so you can gaze
Great.
at Jason's beautiful face while he tells you horrible things about your favorite baseball team. It's an option you have.
Depends on what your favorite baseball team is. May not be the Royals, so if
Definitely right now.
I mean,
it's favorite's a funny word.
Odds are most of the people listening, favorite baseball team, probably the Royals.
Probably.
So if you are throwing a net over the listening audience, you're right. Say some bad things about your favorite baseball team. But that also means now I have to wear pants.
No, so this is a common misconception.
Okay.
Desk blocks everything. So whatever makes you feel like the best host you can be, that's why I, for years and years and years, did the show exclusively in tidy whities. And nobody knew except for Beards and Rudy. And guess who doesn't work here anymore?
I don't want to be constrained. I just want to be able to. I'm a peacock. You got to let me fly here. All right? Just let me spread my wings a little bit. All right, 913-912-4810. Let's talk some. We'll talk plenty of Chiefs today. I promise you that. And in fact, in the second segment, we'll talk some Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes talking yesterday. You heard that as he didn't get started until after we were done with the show. So you heard that yesterday during the program, and we've got some clips that I want to play from the Patrick Mahomes press conference. So the Royals fall to 4-13. They lose last night 4-0, 4-0. They end up losing. Jordan Lyles, to his credit, actually went out there and pitched a pretty good game. Unfortunately for him, 3 runs were unearned. Only one of those runs was earned because of some misplays in the infield by somebody that makes sense they continue to play, because it's definitely a part of the future. You want to continue to see how the 31-year-old develops. If he can be a part of a championship and pennant-winning team, so you got to make sure that he gets as many reps as possible to work through some of the issues that he has in the field that he will no doubt get past in his career. If he can just get a little more playing time, a little more seasoning, and get over that what is typically that 31-year-old hump. That's tough to get over. Once you get past that, it's pretty good. offensively, the Royals reached base 4 times last night. They got a hit. They got 1 hit in the game.
Did you want more than that?
I mean, if you're actually being selfish, yeah, you'd like a little more than that. Here's the thing. This is not an excuse because there are no excuses right now. But I would say Jacob deGrom doesn't need a whole lot of help from the umpire. Because you are toast. If that strike zone is expanded like it was last night and deGrom's on the mound, you don't have a chance. I mean, it's one thing to, have to deal with all that movement and throwing it 100 on the black at times. But when you're giving not only the outside part of the plate, but an inch on each side of the plate to where it's like, I got to protect the plate. Yeah, but now you got to protect even more. So when that ball starts on the outside part of the plate, well, even if it starts to move away, is he going to call it a strike? Well, I got to swing. And now you just swung through a slider that would have been a ball. But maybe it was a strike. So you can't really have an at-bat to where, like back-to-back pitches, MJ Melendez struck out on a pitch that was, I think it was a fastball on the outside part of the plate to him as a left-handed hitter. It was outside, but called a strike. Vinny Pasquantino, the very next at-bat, same pitch, same spot, takes it. Ball. Now, I don't know if that's Vinny Pasquantino starting to get some respect, starting to earn a reputation that he's got a pretty good eye. This guy, if he's not going to swing and it's relatively close, we may go ball. Like, the hitters in Major League Baseball, like if Tony Gwynn didn't swing, it was a ball. Like the umpire was like, he didn't swing. That was right down the middle. He didn't swing. It's a ball. All right? If he doesn't swing, it's a ball. All right? One of those things. I don't know that he's getting that reputation, or last night was an indication of that, but it was just an inconsistent strike zone that was pretty wide and expanded. So that is unfortunate. But when they end up with 1 hit throughout the entire game, that's rough. When 3 times in the entire game they get a runner at second and nobody at third. Nobody touched third in the game for the Royals. Or, stood safely on third. I guess guys could have been running to third while there was a fly ball. So technically they would have touched third. That's nice. No runners got to third. Like, we can continue to go on and on and on about how bad things are for the Royals. We know that. The odd part is the Rangers got 0 people to third. They had nobody standing on third with an at-bat, the Rangers, last night. They only had 2 at-bats with a runner at second last night. One of those was a 3-run home run. And the other was a pop-out by Taveras in the 9th inning. 1st inning and 9th inning. The only times the Rangers came to bat. Yet, in that game, where the Rangers never got a runner to third and took 2 plate appearances with even a runner in scoring position, the game was over early, and you never felt like the Royals were really in it at all. And it was crisp. It was clean. It was barely over 2 hours. And if you're going to get beat, do it quickly. And God bless the Royals for doing that. It's just another indication of not being able to catch up on DVR. Started that game like 35 minutes late. So I started it at like 7:15, I think it was. And I caught up in the top of the 9th. That thing was breezing through. A 6-pitch inning for Jordan Lyles. A 4-pitch inning for Jordan Lyles. Like, it was absurd, some of those things. He could have gone complete game. But Matt Quatraro saying they wanted to get Taylor Clark some work in last night because he hasn't pitched in a while. So, cool. Great. I mean, it wasn't like, you're trying to rest the bullpen or anything, but it was nice that Lyles can go out and do that and do exactly what he's on the team to do. Can we play the clip from Matt Quatraro on Hunter Dozier and defense at third in the 1st inning, if we can? This is Quatraro weighing in on Dozier at third.
Plays that he would make, he knows he makes those plays. First one looked like he just maybe didn't set his feet to make the throw, fielded it cleanly. Second one, fumbled it a little bit. The speed of Jankowski getting down the line probably had a lot to do with that.
Positions, where's your confidence level with him at third base at this point?
He's going to play a lot of third. We told him that going into the year. Vinny's going to play a lot of first base. Dozier's going to play a lot of third.
Dozier's going to play a lot of third. He's going to make those plays. He's going to play a lot of third. Dozier is going to play a lot of third.
It's getting kind of hard to believe things are going to get better.
Well, thank goodness. Thank goodness Dozier is going to be out there playing a lot of third. Nicky Lopez is not your prototypical third baseman, but this is not a team that's building prototypical players right now this year. And Nicky Lopez is better defensively. I like Nicky Lopez at bats right now. And I think Nicky Lopez has a much better chance of being a part of this team in some capacity in a couple, 3 years where Hunter Dozier will not. He may not even be a part of this team later on this summer. And I'm not saying he gets traded. They may just simply say, okay, sorry, go. They're paying the money regardless. Who's going to take on that contract?
I'd rather have Nicky at short and Junior over third.
Oh, I'm with you on that. Give me Nicky at short, Junior at third, or while Michael Massey is in the massive hole and slump and lost like he is, I'd go ahead and send down Michael Massey, bring up Garcia, put Lopez at second, Garcia at short, and Bobby Witt at third. Vinny Pasquantino at first. Call it a day. And move on. Move forward with that. That would be great. Maybe as the season progresses, they'll get to that. But not as long as Dozier's going to be playing a lot of third. Vinny's going to be playing a lot of first. Where else is he going to play? Well, of course he's going to be playing a lot of first. Unless he plays DH. If Nick Prado can start to mash and they need a DH and Vinny Pasquantino can be that, Nick Prado can be, a better defender than Eric Hosmer, like people talked about. If he could figure out the bat, then that'd be great. Then you'd have your optimal defensive alignment. Prado, Lopez, Garcia, Witt, VP at DH. You wouldn't need to pay Franmil Reyes, although you're not paying him much. You can start to maybe see some collection of guys. But if Garcia continues to play like he is, and Dozier continues to play like Hunter Dozier, how can you continue to do that, Josh? With him out. Josh, how can you do this? Why are you doing this, Josh?
I feel like a dummy for thinking the Royals
great.
were going to score a run on Sporting Kansas City Day. Last night was Sporting Day at the K. Why was I not on DraftKings the moment I knew that to just say, I'll take the under on half a run? No one's scoring.
So the Royals got 4 at-bats with a runner in scoring position, so you could say they got 4 shots on goal.
They had 4 shots on goal.
Scored 0.
Did not score. Rangers 4, Royals 0. I don't have a Hunter Dozier counter argument other than he's here, the season's long, and you've got lineup spots to fill. But you guys just in like 15 seconds laid out a way more interesting future. If it's with Garcia and no matter where Nicky Lopez goes, seriously, his at-bats feel competent. Like you see him in the box and you go, all right, this is not going to be a home run, but gosh darn it, if we get a seeing eye single out of this, everyone's happier than we've been in a while because this offense needs not even a spark in the powder keg sense. A spark like you're just you're wailing on a piece of flint. Anything that resembles light. And in some ways, and this might be a really bizarre pivot for me, because he's making a lot of money and all of that. I kind of feel for Hunter Dozier. Like I was out there yesterday pregame, and he was in the cage way early and hit the ball really hard, which is it's funny to me to think about how hard you can hit a baseball and meanwhile be hitting 154 in competition. But he's just been this guy. You said if he continues to be Hunter Dozier, and that's not even unfair. This is just what he's been. Yeah. And when nothing in the present is working, he is not benefiting this idea of, hey, we want to create a borderline winning culture, just a non-depressive culture. We are willing to play a 31-year-old if there is any sign that he's benefiting the team right now. I'm even like a little less bullish on or a little less down, I guess, on Jackie Bradley Jr. because we know the exact logic of why he's on this team and why the Royals brought him in and how he made the roster and all of that. But Hunter Dozier just feels like a sunk cost at this point. And I keep hoping that he will eventually prove that wrong. And there just hasn't even been a glimmer of that. It was one home run of, maybe, and that lasted 45 minutes.
Nicky Lopez has the third highest OPS on the team right now. Not counting Matt Duffy, who, if you want to throw in Matt Duffy, Nicky Lopez has the fourth highest.
I'd like to throw in Matt Duffy.
Right.
Into the field. Into the lineup more.
He actually got the hit last night.
Yeah, shocking.
Yeah.
Man just gets hits.
Also, probably could be a little bit better at third, seeing Sunday. But that ball was hit really hard. Yeah, he's a third baseman in Major League Baseball, so, maybe get a glove on it. Edward Olivares in right field, maybe get a glove on it or just simply don't play it that particular way. So that's the micro part of it last night. Let's talk macro here, and then we'll take a break and talk Mahomes.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's right. Yesterday before the game, our very own Josh Briscoe was out there.
Intrepid reporter.
And talking with Matt Quattrero. Here is the Royals skipper before the game giving an update on Kris Bubic.
Yeah, so the results were the flexor strain and some other underlying concerns that are going to require a second opinion, and that's what we're waiting on right now.
Excuse my lack of medical knowledge, but you talked about the flexor strain. You still have a second opinion coming, but is that surgery next, or I guess what is the timeline with that if that does come about? Or?
Well, no, a flexor strain doesn't usually. That's just a muscle issue, but getting the second opinion to see if there's any other issues.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not ready to talk about surgery yet. No.
Underlying issues is what sticks out to me. And the second opinion. Typically, if you get the news you want, you don't go for a second opinion. Hey, you're clean. There's nothing wrong. It's in any disease or whatever, it's gone. Let me get a second opinion just to make sure. I just want to make sure that everything is really good. Hey, you got this going on. Okay, I appreciate that, but I'm going to get a second opinion just in case so that I have two. Because it's practicing medicine. It's not perfected medicine. They're practicing it. People have different opinions. Underlying issues, not just a flexor strain, but some underlying issues with Kris Bubic. Royals just can't have nice things.
Yeah. When standing there in the dugout, half a dozen people, all around, it's so different than, this is maybe just me explaining this to myself, but it's so different than the way that Chief stuff usually happens, right? You get Andy Reid at a podium in a packed house and 1,000 people in there.
Yeah.
And just sort of 6 or 7 of us around Quattrero there, and he said, second opinion, underlying concerns, and I immediately thought, well, I'm glad I made it out here in time, because that is a sentence, those are phrases I did not expect to hear from Matt Quattrero yesterday, that I did not want to hear from Matt Quattrero yesterday, and I'll add a third place for things that jumped out to me. The very last word of that clip sucks, because the last word of that clip is yet. We're not ready to talk about surgery yet. Which makes me think that there is a world when they know they're going to have to talk about surgery that is perhaps in the near future. Elsewhere in there, I clipped out some of the just sort of housekeeping that was being done at the time, asking about the timeline for the second opinion, when they're going to get all those details and everything. It's not like there was a chance they were going to get it end of day yesterday, as a follow-up from Joel Goldberg. Obviously, haven't gotten anything concrete from that since, but just sucked the air right out of Kaufman.
It's getting kind of hard to believe things are going to get better.
I know I said we would talk Mahomes in the second segment, so I apologize. But I want to take a break, and I want to talk about the responsibility of a decision like that in the game. How much is on the player? And I want to talk about this with Les Norman, too, because the man played. How much is on the player to be truly and fully 100% honest? And also, you've played baseball that long. I think as a 25, 26-year-old, you know the difference between pain and injury. Am I hurt or am I injured? Is this just something to work through, or does this feel different? I think you would know that at that particular time, playing sports for so long and pitching and things like that. So we'll talk to Les Norman about that. But I do want to get into a conversation about the responsibility that's there. Is it on the pitcher? How much falls on Matt Quatraro, Brian Sweeney? Because it certainly sounds like bad news for Kris Bubic. Now, I will point out Baseball Prospectus's injury database shows that pitchers have missed more than 2 months on average with flexor strains. And that's not throwing in Tommy John surgery, because that skews the whole thing, because then it's like, there were 4 pitchers last year that went on the IL with a quote-unquote flexor strain. Or excuse me, there were 4 pitchers last year that went on the IL with a flexor strain that returned that season and pitched. Zach Greinke being one of them.
Boy, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. And most of those pitchers, according to Baseball Prospectus' injury database, return to the mound within 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. So there are some that miss a lot of time. The majority returned within 4 weeks, but the average ended up being a couple of months. Throw in Tommy John surgery, the average ends up being 90 to 100 days. That would be the average missed. So that's why you don't throw in Tommy John surgery. Not every flexor strain ends up with Tommy John. But, man, it feels like every Tommy John starts with some sort of a flexor strain.
I think that's fair.
And that's the concern and that's the worry. We'll talk about that on the other side. And the responsibility, where does it fall, where does it lie, and how much goes to the player and to the manager. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes. We'll hear from James Palmer. We'll talk with Adam Teicher, the 11 o'clock hour. Les Norman at noon. Your texts as well, 913-912-4810. More Zone next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
The NFL Draft is coming, and if you're looking for the VIP experience of a lifetime, Tickets for Less can help. While registering to attend the draft is free, if you're looking to be inside the main theater for the first round and see everything unfold, head over to ticketsforless.com or call today at 913-685-3322. You can purchase a VIP experience for the first round that includes all-inclusive food and beverage, access to the main theater inside Union Station, and so much more. Learn more today at ticketsforless.com.
Greenlight Dispensary has been voted best dispensary in Missouri, with 4 convenient locations.
913-912-4810. We continue rolling on a Tuesday edition of The Zone presented by Google Fiber. We'll talk with Adam Teicher coming up at 11 o'clock. We will hang out with Les Norman coming up at noon. 913-912-4810. Let's hear from Matt Quattrero before the game yesterday. And this was a question asked by our very own Josh Briscoe, who was out there covering the Royals.
Big J journalist.
That's right. Capital J for journalist. The question was about the communication process with the pitchers, manager, pitching coach, pitchers, and what that's like throughout a game as it relates to Bubic and the tightness.
Yeah, you're constantly asking guys whether you feel like there's an issue or not, how they're feeling, how's it going out there, how's your body feel, how's your arm feel, all those kinds of things. So we have those conversations between every inning, and if Brian goes to the mound, that conversation goes on at that point too, where and for all of us, learning what everybody's threshold is different, So Chris was saying that he felt okay, and, obviously when he came out of the game, felt a lot worse than he did out on the mound.
So here's the question. Responsibility in that situation. Where does it lie in terms of getting somebody out or not exacerbating a problem? Is somebody to blame? Is there even fault in that? Was the flexor strain going to happen regardless with Bubic when he talks about underlying issues, that there's a second opinion they're going to get because of the flexor strain and some underlying issues? If those underlying issues were there, maybe it wasn't this start, it might have been his next start or the start after that there might have been a regardless, this was where the train was heading with Chris Bubic. But maybe in general, the responsibility of player-manager communication, because I do think a player has to be as honest as possible with the staff when it comes to an injury or tightness in a forearm or tightness in a hamstring or anything like that. So I think there is certainly responsibility on the player for being as forthcoming as possible. But there also has to be a protecting of the player and a making a decision for the player by the manager, by the coaching staff, by the pitching coach, that we have to protect him from himself. It's cold. It's brisk. He's got tightness in his forearm. His pitch velocity is down. Maybe we don't push him to 100 pitches tonight. Maybe we get him out a little bit early. And again, maybe throwing 100 pitches didn't matter. Right. Maybe the damage done, But if it's just a matter of, I'll leave it up to the player, well, then what's the point of even having a manager to make decisions? Chris Bubic can go, I'm ready to come out of the game, or I'm going to stay in the game. Because if you asked him, hey, you feel all right? Yes. Yep, Skip, I feel good. A little tight, but I can go. I can keep pitching. Salvi, what do you think? It looks okay, great, let's go. If you're just going to simply take the player's word for it, what's the point of going out there and taking him off the mound? Because almost every pitcher will go, no, I got one more in me. I can throw another guy.
So just on the front end, the logic for my question there is based on what the conversation we were having yesterday. If I genuinely did not know, hey, how often are you saying, how does your arm feel,
Agreed,
right?
Yeah.
Because if you told me that no one's asked Zach Greinke how his arm has felt in 10 years, I would believe you, right? But you can trust him, I'm sure, to be especially in tune with what his body is doing, because if he hasn't been asked that question in the last 10 years, that's still with 20 years of Major League pitching experience, I'm pretty sure. He's been in the league forever.
Yeah.
But in the Royals ecosystem there, it really does sound like that is an ongoing conversation. When you see the velocity drop, that should be a huge red flag, obviously. I think that you reasonably expect the player to be the one who is the first to self-report, right? Because it's their arm, they feel it. However, I imagine, and this is something that Quattrero said at the time, and then he said again in that clip, his forearm felt a lot worse after he was out of there than it did in real time. That happens in sports constantly. Yeah. You have adrenaline and you're just doing the job, right? Yeah. You are just out there. If you walked off the mound every time you had a little discomfort in some form, I'm guessing you'd need about 15 pitchers a day, right? That it's just going to be a fine line to walk, both in terms of like, I want to pitch through this, and also, again, just not knowing what you actually feel in real time. Patrick Mahomes' ankle has been a bigger problem the game after it's been hurt than it was in the moment very often, right? Because of the adrenaline and being, again, just in that moment. So I think it's a shared experience, a shared responsibility. I also have no vitriol anywhere at this point for like, how did you let this happen? Because I could very easily see a world where Bubic thought, maybe I got a little something here, but I'm a pitcher and this happens. I will be very curious when we are able to hear from Bubic next, whenever that is. Hey, was it different than usual? Did you really have to kind of grit your teeth and get through it? Or were you just barely even noticing? I think it's a shared responsibility that you got to be really in touch with your own arm as a pitcher. And again, Quatrero said this pregame a couple games ago. If you could go back in time and have been more concerned and say, oh, hey, your velo's down. Let's hit you out right now. Let's not let you throw another pitch. You would obviously do it. In real time, I still think they probably should have seen that velocity drop a little bit sooner and seen, well, even if their velo's down, which we brought into question yesterday, even if their velo's down, this doesn't look quite right for Bubic. Let's get him out of there. I'm not angry at anybody, but man, it is just super duper deflating in a year that has already had so much of that.
And I don't eliminate the possibility that regardless of the decision that Matt Quatrero or Brian Sweeney would have made on Saturday night, that the Royals could still be in this exact same position.
In the exact same spot. It could have just been the next time Chris Bubic threw a baseball.
Or it could have been they come off the mound in the second inning and it feels worse than it did, in the first, or comes off the mound in the third, feels worse than it did in the first and second, and they go, well, let's go ahead and get a precautionary MRI. Let's go ahead and check it out. Okay, now we need a second opinion because there is a flexor strain and there's some underlying issues, and they might have got him out of there in 30, 35 pitches. It might be the exact same thing. So I don't eliminate that possibility of being the case, but I do think in general, sort of the macro part of it of, there comes a time to where the manager, the pitching coach have to step in and just go, conditions, velocity's down, we're going to get you out. We're going to get you out. And yes, the bullpen, it's going to suck. We'll have to tax the bullpen a little bit. But I think it's probably worth it to tax the bullpen with guys that ain't going to be here, next couple of years, rather than push it with Chris Bubic to try to get 5 innings with a guy who's a part of your plan. And the scary part is if he does go under the knife and he has Tommy John surgery, he goes on the IL, and that's service time at the big league level too. So the rest of this year and however long next year is Chris Bubic service time in which he's not pitching or developing or doing anything for the Royals, and you get closer to when you actually either have to pay him or make a decision to move on, all while he is recovering from Tommy John, which again doesn't necessarily have to be somebody's fault. It just sucks.
It just sucks. That's the thing. It's just miserable.
Sucks.
For probably the brightest spot in the season that's been already pretty damn dark.
I would say the bright spot.
I think that is probably totally fair.
Him and Vinny Pasquantino continuing to be the guy he was last year and following up with more of a scouting report on him, following up and being the same guy. Those are probably the 2 bright spots that are there. But boy, they are overshadowed by a lot of clouds. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll hear from Patrick Mahomes. We'll talk with Adam Teicher coming up at 11 o'clock, Les Norman at noon. More Zone presented by Google Fiber next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, you got 3 games going on tonight with 1-0 leads for the Celtics, the Knicks, and the Clippers. But you know what? The playoffs, it means big hoops action with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. You want to get in on the excitement of every game? It's just easy. It's a touch of the button. New customers can make a $5 pregame moneyline bet and score $150 in bonus bets if that team wins. Plus, everyone can score a no-sweat same-game parlay every day during the NBA playoffs. Open the DraftKings app, opt in, place that same-game parlay on any NBA game. If it doesn't hit, you'll get a bonus back. Bonus bet back. Bonus back. Bonus back bet. Bonus bet back. Up to $10. New customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, sign up with code 810WHB, go there, and you get $150 in bonus bets if you place a $5 bet on a team money line to win, like the Suns tonight. Or you can go same game parlay with the Suns tonight. to win outright, Durant to score 20, Booker to score 20, Chris Paul to get made fun of 10 different times in the game. All of those things. Kawhi to be bored. Kawhi to smile under a half is the Kawhi smiles tonight in the same game parlay. Again, that's DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Sign up with code 810WHB. That's 810WHB only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 800-522-4700. 21 plus. Physically present in Kansas. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Opt-in required. One bet issued based on amount of initial losing NBA bet. Eligibility, wagering, and deposit restrictions apply. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/basketball terms. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort.
The area's #1 GM dealer is Robert Brogdon's Olathe Buick GMC.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Josh Briscoe, and Drake. The Zone presented by Google Fiber. We will hang out with Adam Teicher at 11 o'clock, and getting closer and closer to the NFL draft, Josh. I don't know if you know this or not, but
where is it being held? I just wish someone would tell me where it's at.
I'll have to look. I'll look it up and see where it's at.
Radio City, probably, still, right?
Yes.
Hey, it depends on who you're asking, Radio City.
That's right. That's Radio City, Soccer City. Damn right. Soccer capital of the world. Football in the house.
Just don't look at it right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Soccer's changing. Don't look right now.
A little football heading to Kansas City. We will have you covered right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll have the draft coverage Thursday night with Soren Petro, Curtis Siebold, Mark Borichter. I'll be down there at Union Station and around and hanging out. Maybe they'll want me to jump on the air. I don't know. Maybe they won't. Then I'll just go ahead and shoot the breeze with different people. I don't know. I'll be down there. You'll be at Arrowhead Stadium.
Be at Arrowhead, baby.
Working that side of it. Working the phones, talking to people.
That's
right. In the war room, looking at what the draft board is, tweeting out pictures of the board for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to go up there and just take a picture in the war room.
Yeah.
I think they'll let me.
I think they should. I think there should be – it would be awesome if teams let one – and it doesn't have to be you – but like one reporter in there.
It clearly should be.
It'd be awesome if it was you, or actually it'd be better if it was me, but it'd be awesome if it was you too.
Yeah, but I have to keep it to I have to swear secrecy.
Yeah, it would have to be embargoed for like a week or something.
Oh my goodness.
You could report on it. You can do all of those things. You can take notes of everything going on, but you couldn't release any of the information for like a week. So then you could talk about what took place in the room, things like that. That would be amazing.
I would settle for getting to see some of that just after the fact entirely, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you can't trust me to not be a blabbermouth. I get it. That's a well-earned concern. Go ahead and let's just release the big board after the fact. Veach, let's go. Let's share the secrets. They're not even going to do that because in 4 years, one of those dudes is going to be a free agent. And they're going to go, well, we had him at 42 and back in 2023. What?
That's right. Let's try to trade for this guy. We would love to know where they had Kadarius Toney.
Exactly. I could have just picked the one very real example instead of coming up with a hypothetical one.
All good. Let's hear from Patrick Mahomes. He was on the Zoom press conference call yesterday as he is down in Texas with the different receivers and things like that. He was asked about the receiving group with a couple of newcomers from a year ago, Sky Moore, the rookie, and Kadarius Toney, the second-year player, but arrived mid-season. And Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney's improvement this year.
I think the biggest thing, you start off with getting both those guys in year two of the offense and letting them expand their roles. I think you could see it, especially with Sky at the end of the season. How he was getting more and more involved in the offense. And I think he'll continue to take those steps and be even better this next year when he's more comfortable, can utilize his talents even more. And then with Kadarius, I think y'all saw the upside this last year of how special of a talent he can be. And so to have him in that offense another year, have him working with Coach Reed, how we practice and training camp, I think he'll have his body in the best shape that you could possibly be in to go out there and be healthy all season long. And so we're excited for those guys to take those next steps within this offense.
That is the hope. It's the hope that another year in the offense, year one to year two, sophomore year in the NFL, usually the biggest jump, the biggest leap forward. As they used to say in college, the best thing about a freshman is that they become sophomores. It's not the case anymore because now freshmen can come in and just be awesome. But best thing about a rookie is that he eventually become a second-year player. And hopefully that's the case with Sky Moore because there's a lot of hope of what he can be. I loved Sky Moore coming out of the draft last year. I was pumped that they drafted him. And if he does take a step forward, then the wide receiver group is not nearly as big of an issue as maybe it seems on the surface. And if Kadarius Toney, again, more and more used to the offense, different ways to utilize him, and health is obviously an issue and a factor with him. If those guys take a step forward, the wide receiver group looks a lot different than what is sort of, we know what it looked like with Kadarius Toney. We know what Sky Moore looked like last year. We know what MVS looked like last year, and that's really all we have to go off of right now.
And I think as we talk about what these rookie wide receivers could look like, I still hesitate in a major way to put any expectations on rookies whatsoever because when you hit that sophomore season, I actually think that's when Andy Reid's going to be willing to give Sky Moore, not just more of the playbook in that literal sense, but more of the faith that he will be able to execute it and know what he's looking at. For Kadarius Toney, the idea also that he's just going to have his body right in part thanks to the Chiefs much more intensive training camp compared to some other teams around the country is fascinating. A little scary, but fascinating. These are all still kind of loose building blocks in my mind of, Sky Moore, big year 2 jump, and Tony's hamstrings are going to be good, and we're not worried about it. Because, hey, look, if you could guarantee those 2 things to me, I would feel a whole lot better about this group. If that pays off, the Chiefs are in a perfectly fine spot at wide receiver if they don't add anybody else. If those 2 things don't come to fruition, it's really scary out here.
And if there's a level of expectation of what you can get from those guys.
Totally.
Like, even if there's a level of, okay, here's what we know week to week Sky Moore will bring us. Here's what we think Kadarius Toney can bring us. The injury thing is obviously a concern because I think at this point you know week to week what MVS is going to give you. And if you have that, then I trust Andy Reid and Matt Nagy and Patrick Mahomes and everybody else to be able to scheme guys open, to be able to find the open receiver, to utilize them off of Travis Kelce. And if you protect Patrick Mahomes a decent amount, then it's going to be hard for defensive backs and defenses overall to play defense on the Chiefs. And even at that point, if you're blocking for Mahomes that long, then he breaks out of the pocket and does some different things there. Now the play breaks down, and there's other ways to get guys involved and working with Patrick Mahomes down the field. So there's so many different dynamics. There's so many different elements of what the Chiefs can do offensively that even if there is an expected level, this is what we will get from Sky Moore, this is what we'll get from Kadarius Toney. Rookies, it's an unknown. It's a huge unknown of what that player is going to provide because you don't know how quickly they're going to pick up the offense. You don't know how quickly they'll also learn the smaller nuances of the offense. Mm-hmm. What do they look like in the NFL as opposed to college? Is he somebody that Patrick Mahomes will build a rapport with and actually trust? Like, there's a lot of question marks about that. Marty Schottenheimer used to always say, if I had a player that for 8 games would give me a 10 and for 8 games would give me a 0, and I had a player for 16 games that would give me a 5, I'll take the 5 because I know how to coach around that. I can't coach for somebody that I'm expecting to be a 10 and gives me an absolute 0 because that guy's probably a big part of my game plan because he's a game wrecker and he gave me nothing. If I got a guy that's steady, here's how I can prep and plan for what I have and what is an expected level of performance. That's difficult to find anywhere.
And I also kind of tying the 2 things together of what you're asking, the questions you're asking about the unknowns and what your goal is. I would be really curious to know what the holdup was, for lack of a better term, with Sky Moore last year. Not even that he super underachieves, because again, I think you adjust your expectations accordingly for rookie wide receivers Andy Reid's offense. But which part of it was he not 100% ready for? If it is something to do with the playbook, NFL level, et cetera, getting into the intricacies of the offense, that doesn't worry me. If it's, because we're not sure he was able to do it physically against NFL level competition, which I am not leaning in that direction, to be clear. Going back and seeing some of the things he did do last year, he looked physically at home at the NFL level. But those are the questions that I think are even more playing into that boom and bust aspect of it, where, hey, can I trust you to at least have this floor be high enough in your game where you're going to be in the right spots and that you do still have these physical tools? Meanwhile, I cannot help but to be enticed by the guy that does have a 10 because that could be the thing that this team is missing. Now, funnily enough, Kadarius Toney might be your 10-0 guy. Healthy Kadarius Toney might be a 10. Unavailable Kadarius Toney is a 0. Welcome to the jungle. This is. But hey, if Sky Moore's a 4 to 7 all the time, and MVS is a 4 to 7 all the time, you can afford to have a little more boom and bust.
2 different second-round picks for the Chiefs, with Brett Beach as rookie wide receivers, Mecole Hardman and Sky Moore. Sky Moore, 22 receptions, 250 yards, and no touchdowns. Mecole Hardman had a great rookie year, but he only had 26 receptions, so it was only 4 more. But he had 538 yards and 6 touchdowns because Mecole Hardman averaged 21 yards per catch. Sky Moore's a different player. He averaged 11 yards per reception. Different player than Mecole Hardman. If Sky Moore was that fast game breaker, let's find different ways just to simply put the ball in his hands on the outside, let him go deep, things like that. I think Sky Moore would have averaged more yards per reception. But interesting, the receptions are 22 for Sky Moore, 26 for Mecole Hardman. Those are second rounders. If you draft a first rounder, what would you expect? 40? 45?
On the high side, maybe.
Absolutely. Tice, you're next.
Kansas City's official home of the NFL Draft. Sports Radio 810 WHB, Kansas City.
Tomlin has 3 different opinions that have all cleared him to play football. So there you go. 913-912-4810. Let's talk some Chiefs football with Adam Teicher from ESPN joining us here in the Zone on this Tuesday. Adam, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Good, Jason. How are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. It's going to be hopefully a pretty day today, and so hopefully also 9 days from today it'll be beautiful, and we'll see what the Chiefs end up drafting. But before we get into some of the things as it relates specifically to the Chiefs, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Jalen Hurts contract, because seems like some of the takeaway has been who are the winners, who are the losers for, the Jalen Hurts contract. And squarely in the winners side is the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes' contract with Jalen Hurts. So what was your reaction to seeing 5 for $255?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought, that the Mahomes contract is looking better than it was, 2 days ago. And, probably look even better when Joe Burrow signs, and even better again when Justin Herbert signs. So, the Chiefs will probably be doing something with that at some point to sweeten his deal a little bit. But that's what it is. I mean, he basically took, and he knew it at the time. We knew this at the time, that he was taking less money, and this wasn't going to be a contract that held up well over time in terms of setting the market or anything like that.
Yeah, and Andy Reid, look, you sign a big deal and immediately it's going to get passed up, and that's the case. And Jalen Hurts is going to get passed up this summer probably by Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert, probably not Lamar Jackson, but by one of those guys. I would expect that to be the case. And next year, the year after that, we'll see all of those things. Do you think? Or not even do you think, when, I guess would be the question, not if, but when do you think the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and Lee Steinberg will get together and rework the Mahomes contract, not just on a yearly changing roster and signing, but back to the table to rework, and his contract and salary is maybe more representative for what his performance is on the field compared to what the price of doing business is now in the NFL with quarterbacks?
Yeah, well, the Chiefs sort of knew this day would be coming. I mean, it's not like that was a mystery to them. I don't know if it'll be a complete rework where they just sort of scrap the old one and start in and do something new, or they just sort of sweeten the deal, and throw in some extra money here and there, maybe every year. I don't know, but. Certainly, they have some options there, and it's never too soon to do that. I mean, look what he's done for the franchise. I mean, he's you could say at what he's making, he's the steal of the NFL. Even at that contract, he's a steal for the Chiefs for what he's done for them. So it may happen as soon as this year.
Mahomes cares about history in the NFL and legacy. Where his place is when we look at the best to ever do it. I think that matters to him. I think the second MVP matters. I think as many Super Bowls as possible matters to him. When we talk about Tom Brady, I bring that up because one of the things that people discussed with Brady a lot was, well, he always seemed to take less money for the team, taking less money for the team. He took less money for the team. Well, one of the things about Tom Brady, he wasn't really ever the highest paid quarterback. He always took less money for the team and worked it out with the Patriots. And there was always the funny side conversation of like, okay, so what island is Robert Kraft buying Tom Brady, on the side instead of paying him the salary, right, that he's giving him that money. I bring that up because I do wonder if there's a part of Patrick Mahomes that, that competitive nature of, no, I want to be the best at everything, and I'll count to 4 when I think Lamar Jackson is number 1, or they say Lamar Jackson's number 1 and I'm number 4. I'll count to 10 when Mitch Trubisky and I'm playing the Bears. If there's that drive to go, no, I'm the best. I want to be the highest paid player. I want that to be representative for me as to what I'm doing. Or if there's that known history and legacy in the back of his mind of what people talk about with Tom Brady, is that maybe what he wants to be known for as a guy that continually took less money to keep the team in better position to go and sign other guys. Where do you think he sort of lands in that sort of overall wide spectrum of, us talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and what actually taking less is, which is pretty relative?
Yeah, well, I loved his answer last summer. When the Chiefs first got to training camp, he was asked about being overtaken by who would it have been? I think it was Kyler Murray and the Deshaun Watson contract also. So, he'd been pushed 2 more spots down the list and was kind of dropping down that list. And, he's like, then that's when he started in about, hey, rings are more important to me than money. I'm getting paid enough. I can live off what the Chiefs are paying me and then some. But rings are how I'm going to be judged in the end and not by money. So I think there's a lot of, I don't think he's just saying that. I think he really believes that. Now, with that said, I think he's okay taking less as long as he's convinced the Chiefs are doing a reasonably good job in living up to their end of the bargain and not wasting that money and making good decisions with how they spend their money. And I think at this point, so far at least, he has to be pretty happy with that. I don't know what he could really complain about in terms of how the Chiefs are building the roster around him. So, they traded Tyreek Hill, and I wouldn't have been happy about that if I were him, but they made it work. I mean, that trade is working out exactly as the Chiefs intended. So at least through 1 year it is. So, I feel like he'll be okay with it, status quo. As long as the Chiefs are in the hunt for a Super Bowl or every year and maybe winning one every 2 or 3 years, I think he'll be okay with that. Now, if the Chiefs start falling off the table a little bit and they turn into the Arizona Cardinals or something like that, then I think he might have an issue with being the 7th or 8th or 10th highest paid quarterback or whatever he is by that point.
Yeah, I don't know what the peer conversation is with players in the NFL and contracts of looking at Mahomes' deal and if they're sort of side conversations or snickering of like this guy's like the 6th highest paid Mahomes. If I don't know if any of that takes place, but it seems like from the outside and some of the analysts, like it's viewed as a positive for Mahomes, like to Mahomes as the person / player, that look what Mahomes has done. It's like an extra notch on his belt, an extra feather in the cap of what makes him one of the best in the game is that he does this, he does that, he does that. He took less money for the overall team. It's not viewed as like, what's this guy doing? Why isn't he holding out for a little more money? So I think it's viewed as a positive, but inside the game, I do wonder if there are players of the NFLPA or maybe even Lee Steinberg of like, okay, Patrick, you've taken less money, but come on, the best quarterback in the NFL can't continue to be the 5th or 6th. You need to help reset the market for everybody else. So let's work a new deal out here. Let's get this particular dollar sign. We can structure it to where it can be advantageous for the club. But we need to reset the market for quarterbacks to where you're going to be the low water mark. Or the high water mark for everybody, whichever way you want to look at it, for contracts. I wonder how much inside the game, behind the scenes, there's pressure to, no, you need to go get your money, Patrick.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's a lot of that. And, I feel like, there's probably some pressure on him to go ahead and do that. But, again, as long as the Chiefs are winning, he's got a ready answer. He really does. I mean, he doesn't, he didn't need to buckle into that pressure right now. Now, again, if the Chiefs turn into an 8-9 team this year and next year, that's a different story. Then he's got some reason to, maybe to go after that kind of contract or feel like there is more pressure on it. But right now, as long as the Chiefs are winning the way they are, I don't feel like he needs to cave into that pressure, really.
Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN. Adam, I enjoyed the article that you wrote for ESPN. Came out yesterday on ESPN, and it is the 2023 NFL Draft, how the Tyreek Hill trade affects the Chiefs 1 year later. And it is really interesting to go back and look at that to where they were before the draft and wondering what that would look like with all of those draft picks to looking at it now. I mean, there's no other way to look at it, especially when they won the Super Bowl. that the Tyreek Hill, to this point, the Tyreek Hill trade has been a massive success so far for the Chiefs.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. It's working out exactly as they hoped, and there's time for it to go the other way. I mean, there's time for it to look bad for the Chiefs. I mean, if the Chiefs don't add any more at wide receiver after losing Juju and after losing Tyreek Hill or McCole Hardman, and this thing starts. They struggle with the passing game, and they're losing more games than they're accustomed to, then maybe you'd look back and say, yeah, should have kept Tyreek Hill. We'd trade Trent McDuffie and Sky Moore for Tyreek Hill right now, but so there's plenty of time for that. But right now it's working out exactly as they intended. They've used that cap space that freed up from the contract that they don't have now, or the Tyreek Hill contract that the Dolphins have, and they got, they turned the 2 draft picks they got, 2 of the 3 draft picks. They actually traded the 3rd one last year to get McDuffie. So the 2 players they got from that trade last year were McDuffie and Sky Moore, and they got 2 more picks from that trade this year. So giving the Chiefs a lot of flexibility in this year's draft too. So, and the way they've drafted in the latter rounds, I mean, wow, you got to feel like at least with one of those picks, they'll get a pretty good player. So it's just right now, it's kind of the gift that keeps giving for the Chiefs, and doesn't mean it's always going to give to them or for the foreseeable future. But right now, it certainly looks that way.
Can you throw in Darian Kennard too if they trade back with the Sky Moore pick and pick up the 5th and get Kennard? Not that it's been like, it's not Trey Smith or anything like that, but they gave up a pick to go up and get Trent McDuffie, and then with that second rounder they slid back and got an extra 5th, so you can even throw him in there. And if he becomes a rotational guard, then you're talking about a cornerback that starts, a wide receiver that hopefully will grow into a number 2 or a really good number 3 slot receiver, and then a rotational guard to guard and maybe even swing tackle at some point in his career. That's pretty damn good for the 3 picks of that particular year, while you also have more.
Yeah. So it really is, and I think that it's fair to point out that the trade is probably working as the Dolphins intended as well. I mean, they've got to do better than they did last year now. Now they have to, go beyond making the playoffs and losing in the first round as a wild card. I mean, they've got to make some noise in the playoffs for that trade to really work out for them. And but hey, they didn't have their starting quarterback last year, so that made a difference when they got to the playoffs. But I feel like the trade is working out like the Dolphins hoped. They've made them relevant again, and it's given them hope as a contender this year. So it's worked out as they had. But if you're the Chiefs, just looking at purely from the Chiefs' standpoint, if you had told Brett Veach and Andy Reid and Clark Hunt and everybody a year ago at this time, well, this is how this trade's going to work out. Will you take it? They absolutely would have taken it.
Yeah, absolutely. If somebody would have even said they trade, they don't trade, they're going to win a Super Bowl. Okay, whatever it takes. What is it that they did to win a Super Bowl? I don't know, but I'll sign up for that. They traded Tyreek Hill, but they won the Super Bowl.
Well,
okay, great, done.
Not every move they made can be directly traced to them or directly leads to them winning a Super Bowl last year. But I feel like this move did. You can point to McDuffie and you can point to Sky Moore and you can point to the additional cap space that they had and getting Tyreek Hill-like production from the 2 players who they signed in his place for far less money, Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So I feel like this did lead. You can trace one to the other. Hey, would the Chiefs have won the Super Bowl had they not made the trade? It's hard to argue they wouldn't. I mean, with Tyreek Hill in their lineup, but what would they had to give up? We know they'd be giving up McDuffie. We know they'd be giving up Sky Moore. What else would they have had to give up? In terms of cap space, would they have to cut somebody? Would Frank Clark have been in last year's team? I mean, you have to wonder what the Chiefs would have had to forfeit had they made that or not made that trade.
Would they then have to forfeit Chris Jones? Not necessarily forfeit, but trade him? I mean, they're in a position now to where the cap space allows them at least to say, look, we can pay Chris Jones, and be the second highest defensive tackle in the NFL. But if you gave Tyreek Hill that money and he's a $30 million cap hit this year, and Patrick Mahomes is 40 and he's jumping up into the higher 40s, and Tyreek Hill, that cap number is still going to be there. Maybe you can restructure and add a year or something. But at that point, you kind of feel like you might be forced to trade Chris Jones at this point and try to get a first, a second, or something else out of him. Because could you sign all three of those guys to have Tyreek the highest paid receiver, Patrick Mahomes not the highest paid quarterback, but still $40+ million against the cap, and then Chris Jones the second highest paid defensive tackle?
Yeah, I talked to Brett Veach. It was maybe shortly before the end of the regular season about the trade and how it was working out, and he said, listen, our future, if had we gone ahead and signed Tyreek Hill to a deal similar to what the Dolphins did, our future in terms of being able to sign outside free agents and retain our own guys was going to be pretty bleak for a while. He didn't name any names, but I thought of Chris Jones the first thing, that hey, once Chris Jones' contract is up, which it is at the end of this season, the Chiefs were going to have to let him go. They were going to have no choice. And some of the other younger guys that are coming through the pipeline, like L'Jarius Sneed and Creed Humphrey and guys like Nick Bolton, guys like that, they were going to have to let him go. So this at least gives the Chiefs a chance to re-sign at least some of those guys, if not all of them. But at least this gets them a chance. They sort of had come to that acknowledgement that had they re-signed Tyreek Hill to the deal, something similar to what he got from the Dolphins, that they were going to have to say goodbye to pretty much all those guys. And not only that, but not be able to replace them in free agency because they wouldn't have money for that either.
How much extra equity do you think Brett Veach has gained and earned with Patrick Mahomes specifically? In the piece at ESPN, you've got the quote of Mahomes saying that I wanted to keep Tyreek Hill, but then talking with Brett Veach about the plan, told me what it was with the draft picks and different flexibility and everything, and then said, I'm here for the long haul, and I want to win Super Bowls, multiple Super Bowls, and if that's what it takes, then let's do it. And for them to go out and execute the plan. Like, it'd be one thing if, like, McDuffie wasn't any good and Karlaftis was a failure and Sky Moore did nothing and all this other stuff, and then they spend money on the wrong players that come in, and it's Kendrell Bell that they go and sign as a free agent or something like that. And the Chiefs are just like, okay, they're competing for a playoff spot, but it's Mahomes having to carry the team, right? Something along those lines. It would be tough for Mahomes to go, yeah, remember when you traded Tyreek Hill? The guy that, I didn't want you to move on from, and then we got this, and this, and what's that done? How much equity do you think Brett Veach has gained with Patrick Mahomes in now, if something else were to come up this year or next year of, hey, Patrick, we want to go this route here, like even to the point of if they don't draft a first round or second round or third round wide receiver this year, if they just simply go into the season with the wide receiver group, I think there's a level of trust there from Patrick Mahomes to Brett Veach that maybe would have had more skepticism if they didn't succeed and execute the plan and then win a Super Bowl the way that they did last year.
Yeah, and it's not just that they succeeded with some of the decisions they made. It's they keep him in the loop. He's not. They just don't make these. They just don't make these signings or these trades or whatever, and he finds out about it, after the fact. I mean, he's involved, very involved, and they go into specifics with him. Hey, here's who we plan to sign Juju Smith-Schuster. We plan to sign Marquez Valdez-Scantling. We plan to sign Kadarius Toney, and even the Toney thing. Okay, it didn't work out at the time last year, last spring, but the Chiefs kept after it and made it good later on in the year. So the Chiefs are delivering on their promises to him in a lot of cases in these things, and it's working out. And they do talk to him before the fact, and so it's worked out well on both sides, really.
Adam Teicher from ESPN is our guest. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling the zone presented by Google Fiber. We'll get into the draft with Adam Teicher. Some questions about what this Chiefs roster looks like and decisions that could be made in the first, the second, the third round. Mock drafts out there, which I know Adam loves. He loves talking about mock drafts. If there's one thing that we discuss with Adam a lot, it is the mock drafts out there. We'll talk with him about some of those things. And if there is a deal on the table next Thursday for a team to move back into the first round, does Clark Hunt say, okay, let's do it? We'll talk about that with Adam Teicher coming up next here in the zone on the Tuesday. It's presented by Google Fiber.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
If you're on the Missouri side and maybe you've been wondering about what's going on in the marijuana space over here in the MO side, I say over here where, I live. It's been really good for me, and it's been really good for me to know about Greenlight Dispensary. They're where I will point you every single time because they will make sure you have the best experience possible at one of their 4 KC area locations, their new one on 135th and State Line, Bannister, Independence, Harrisonville. Pick your location. They're all tremendous, including the Underground and Independence. That's early in the month, though. Let me tell you why Greenlight should be your choice. Voted Missouri's best dispensary numerous times by the people of Missouri. They always have great inventory and a huge variety at Greenlight. They have the care, the quality, and the knowledgeable bud tenders to make your experience exactly what you need it to be. If that's asking the questions and knowing, hey, here's what I'm looking for. How do I get there from point A to point B? That's what the bud tenders there at Greenlight are perfectly equipped to do. That was a huge factor for me early on at Greenlight. I walked in not knowing what to do or even what to ask for, certainly not knowing what to buy. They had the answers, pointed me in the right direction, and still, every time I go, I ask, hey, well, what do you think I ought to go for here? That's something you can always do. Open your questions to Greenlight Dispensary, and they will give you the answers. Plus, you can order online for pickup via their drive-thru or the grab-and-go window, which is incredibly easy and incredibly convenient once you do know what it is you want to be picking up. Of course, you can also go inside, browse in person, ask what's right for you, and they have extended hours on the weekend, plus a menu you can check out online at greenlightdispensary.com. Check out the locations, the options, everything you need to know about Greenlight Dispensary, again, at greenlightdispensary.com.
Barstool Sports at Hollywood Casino and Shamrock.
All right, hanging out with Adam Teicher from ESPN. It is The Zone, presented by Google Fiber. Award-winning internet without data caps, annual contracts or hidden fees. 1 gig internet, the same price since 2012, and now available up to 5 gigs. Adam Teicher, our guest here from ESPN. All right, Adam, as the draft approaches and we hear different analysts and things like that, Brandon Beane for the Buffalo Bills said that, what do you say, Josh, like 11 or 12 first-round grades that they have on a particular player or something like that?
He said he wouldn't give a number, but, quote, it's not great.
It's not
the
great.
Quote, in terms of how many actual first-round grades they've given out.
Because we know we always talk about, there are 31 this year. There are going to be 31 first-rounders taken, but do teams grade it that way? How good is this draft, have you heard from whether it's GMs, coaches, analysts, things like that? Is this a good draft? Is it a generic draft? What have you heard?
No, not a great one. And, I don't think it's ever happened where a team's had more first-round grades on players than there are first-round draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think that there's always less than that. So that's why, those picks at the end of the first round, the last, 5 or so, or maybe even more than that, are kind of looked at as around the league as second-round picks. That's why, if you want to, take a player at a lesser position, like a running back, taking running backs in the first round's fallen out of favor. Well, there's a difference in taking one at 10 and taking one at 30. There's a pretty big difference in that, and so that's why it's not that big of a deal for teams maybe to do that kind of thing. So, but to answer your question, I don't think this is a great draft. Doesn't mean you can't find some good players, but I don't think, from what I understand, most people seem to think that, in 10 years or whatever, we'll be looking back and saying, not a great draft in 2023.
Yeah, and I am always there's a part of me that is sometimes skeptical of GMs. Are like, look, this draft is not very good, so when we don't get any good players, you cannot blame me because it just was a bad draft. It's just, you know what, not our fault. This draft sucked. Yeah, this draft stinks, so why don't you give me your draft picks so I can have more, and then you won't be burdened with, having to pick between this, pick among this crap here. Yeah. Yeah, because certainly if next year's draft class is viewed as better, which it is, then next year's pick is more valuable. So let's say if the next year's first-round pick for the Chiefs is more valuable, even if they pick 32nd, which would be great. So if they were to sit there at number 31 and say, we got to trade up and get this guy, but if we trade up so far, we got to give away next year's first-rounder, well, if people are talking about how much of a better draft, then maybe next year's first-rounder is more valuable than this year's first-rounder, because if you're talking about like 18 to 70 or kind of like the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, well, 31, what's it take to get up there to get a particular guy? Visiting with Adam Teicher from ESPN, what are you most comfortable with at position starting the season the way the roster is constructed right now? If they do not add to the wide receiver group, or they don't add to the offensive tackle group, and the expectations are all of this will happen, or they don't add to the defensive line group, they get through the draft and somehow a wide receiver isn't drafted, or they draft a wide receiver, defensive line, somehow tackle isn't drafted. They draft somehow defensive line isn't drafted. What are you most comfortable with going into the season and saying, okay, if they don't address this, it's not, ideal, but more comfortable than the others?
Yeah, I'm okay with them going in where they are at offensive tackle if that's what they have to do. I think Lucas Niang can handle that spot, and the Chiefs don't have to reach for somebody. They don't have to get somebody. That's not to say if they can't find a good one, they shouldn't go do it, because he might make them a better team. But I don't think that's that's the draft is a failure, for instance, if the Chiefs don't get that done. I think the other spots, they probably are better served by, finding somebody they like at those spots. But, and just talking about the whole roster, taking quarterback out of it, of course, and maybe even interior offensive line. Where are the Chiefs so good that they couldn't they can't use a good player. Where are they so loaded where they can't, there's somebody they could find that couldn't help them out. I mean, I don't know there's any spots on the roster other than quarterback and maybe interior offensive line where they couldn't find it. They could say, no, we're good here. We absolutely don't need a player at this spot, no matter how good he is. I feel like there's a lot of spots that a player could make them a better team. So I feel like their roster, for the most part, is in good enough shape where they can afford to do that. So that's why I wouldn't necessarily be surprised by a lot of the things the Chiefs do.
Would you, we've talked so much about defensive line, mainly edge, and offensive line and wide receiver. The Chiefs spent a lot of their resources last year on the defense, and they spent 3 draft picks on cornerbacks and, 5 draft picks on the secondary. Let's say something crazy happens. A year ago, the Chiefs did not expect Trent McDuffie to be there at number 21. But oddly enough, they also needed a cornerback. So that worked out well. Need and value and all of that stuff. Let's say somebody like, crazy, like Joey Porter Jr., the cornerback from Penn State that's supposed to be a top 20 pick. Let's say somehow he's there at 31. One, you would say, okay, what's everybody else missing? But if he's there at 31, would you hesitate to, if you're the Chiefs, to draft somebody that shouldn't be there in the 20s at number 31, even though it's a position you spent 3 draft picks on last year? Would you hesitate to say, this guy is a first-round grade we gave this guy? No, we're taking him, rather than, we could use a tackle, we could use a wide receiver, we could use a defensive lineman. No, this guy's not supposed to be here, even though it's a position where they've already spent a number of draft resources on.
No, I'd go ahead and take Joey Porter if that were the case. It would probably signal to me that the Chiefs are thinking that L'Jarius Sneed isn't coming back after this season. That would probably be a signal there. But other than that, how does he not make them a better team? They've got McDuffie and they've got Sneed, and now they've got Joey Porter, and that's pretty good, top 3 right there. And does he make them a better team? I think you'd have a trouble arguing that he wouldn't make them a better team, not just this year, but down the line as well, particularly if they're preparing to lose L'Jarius Sneed. So, I would absolutely. That's kind of what I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
Would he make them a better team? Maybe not just in 2023, but for the next 4 or 5 years. I think, and if the answer is yes, absolutely go and do that. No doubt about it.
Visiting with Adam Teicher. Let's say the Chiefs are sitting there at number 31, and a name that's been thrown around there is could dictate some things at the end of the first round. Hendon Hooker is still available, and a team wants to trade up and get that 5th-year option for a quarterback. And the Chiefs are receiving phone calls from other teams. Is Clark Hunt okay with that? Is he signing off on the deal? And Brett Veach going to Clark and saying, look, there's a deal. We can move back to 38 and pick up a 3rd rounder. So, that 3rd round draft pick we traded for Kadarius Toney, we now have 2 seconds and 2/3. So now we got 4 players in the top 100. What do you think, Clark? But they won't announce with the 31st pick, the world champion Kansas City Chiefs select. Clark Hunt, go with that? Okay with trading back?
Yeah. Hey, there may be an extra question to Brett Veach. Hey, Brett, are you sure we really need to do this? Tell me again why this trade benefits us. But you don't get to win championships by turning down trades that your general manager, who's got a pretty good track record, is good at making. You don't do that. And if he feels like that's a good move for the Chiefs, hey, we can get 2 2s or whatever it might be, I feel like, the Chiefs would be stupid not to make that trade, and would make that. More importantly, they would make that trade. I don't think there's any doubt they would bail out of the first round if they felt like it was good for them. I don't think that's within question. Yeah.
And if I'm the Chiefs, I'm not trading back for anything less than at least a 3rd. Like, if I'm trading back, I'm not getting an extra fourth thrown in there. Like, I want a third rounder if I'm going to trade back. Depends on how far you got to trade back, but I'm not dropping out of the first round to grab a fourth rounder there. And they've been good at that, but I need a top 100 pick.
Yeah, I don't see the Chiefs trading back and just like bailing out and not picking again until their pick at the end of the second round. I don't see that happening. I think they'd have to, I feel like they need to get something good in the second round, and then maybe something else down the road too. So absolutely.
Because then it could give them flexibility. Because if let's just game it out here for a second. Somebody calls and it's like, hey, we'll give you the 36th pick to trade back from 31, and we'll give you 70 or 80 in the third round. Okay, let's do it. Chiefs are on the clock at 35-36. They take a selection, and then they're sitting there at 63, or they're going to be sitting there at 63, and somebody's there at 55. Well, can we use one of those third-round picks and move up? So now, instead of having a pick at 31 and 63, do you have a pick at 38 and 55? And then also the third rounder you had before. Are you a better team because of that? I think you can make a pretty strong case that you would be a better team. The only thing you lose is the fifth-year option for that player in the first round. But how many players fifth-year option is exercised, especially late first-rounders? Like, how often does that happen where the the fifth-year option is exercised as opposed to just simply signing a contract for that guy, an extension, or playing in the franchise tag?
Yeah, so I do feel like the Chiefs would end up doing that. I mean, I can't see them doing it for a bad deal or something Brett Veach really wasn't convicted in. But I do feel like it came to it, they would do that.
All right, we'll see what happens. We'll hear from Brett Veach on Thursday, and he'll tell us all about the trades and his full board and go into in depth in each and every prospect. Adam, looking forward to that on Thursday. But we'll talk next week when we'll be just a couple of days away from the draft getting rolling. So appreciate the time as always, sir. Good stuff at ESPN with the last year's Tyreek Hill trade and impacting this year's draft. It's really good stuff there from Adam Teicher. Adam, you're the man. Talk to you next week, bud.
Good stuff, Jason. I'm going to get back to my 7-round mock draft now.
Thank you.
Not just the Chiefs, but all teams. So I'm going to get back to that. So I'm working on it, and I'll have it ready for you by next Tuesday for sure.
Cannot wait. I really appreciate that. Adam, you're the man. Looking forward to reading it.
All right, man.
See ya. There's Adam Teicher, who everybody knows, lover of mock drafts. Lover of Spartans and mock drafts. Those are the things in his life. Spartans, mock drafts. And when you can mock a Spartan to the Chiefs, now you got worlds coming together. Dogs and cats living together. It's a beautiful thing. People helping people. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling, and we'll continue talking some NFL football and the Chiefs. Les Norman will join us at noon. It is The Zone on a Tuesday, presented by Google Fiber.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, so nice weather is here. You know that. It's pretty outside, and hopefully it continues to be pretty, and the days go by, and we can enjoy the outdoors. And while you're out there, hey, check out the roof. Pyramid Roofing is the spot for you. If you have any questions, you want a free estimate, give them a call. They can make sure that you've got that peace of mind. Or you've got some gutter issues, which maybe we do at the house. You've got some wood issues and wood rot issues around some of the gutters, which, certainly can happen around the area. Pyramid Roofing is the spot for you. 816-966-1101. You can check them out, pyramidroofingkc.com. If you are looking for gutters, you're looking for an improvement or fixing some spots on the roof, you want to give them a call and have that peace of mind. It's a free estimate. Come out, check everything out, give you the estimate, figure out what you want to do, where you want to go from there, and Pyramid Roofing has you taken care of. 816-966-1101, or check them out, pyramidroofingkc.com.
Sports Radio 810 WHB is the official broadcast partner of the NFL Draft in
Tuesday edition of The Zone, 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us. 913-912-4810. Text says, what about Bijan Robinson? Josh, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, if he's there at the end of the third round, I think they got to do it. Love that pick.
Boy, that would be the shocker of all shockers.
Sure would be.
It's probably happened before, but maybe I just don't remember it because it's been a while. Heck, it might have been last year. But do you remember a draft when, like, the consensus of, like, teams were like, there are a lot of first-round grades with this draft this year. Like, it's either this is typical or it sucks. It's a typical year with, like, 17 to 21 or fewer than normal. I don't know the last time we heard, like, the consensus being, no, there are a lot more first-round graded players this year. It is a top-heavy draft, and there's a lot of really good players that wouldn't have been, you know, that are first-rounders this year that you can get at 23, 24, that you would have had to get at 15 or 16 in some years. I bring that up because I kind of feel like the longer it goes, it's kind of a built-in excuse for GMs of like, well, you know, we missed in the first round, but I mean, there were only like 15 first-round graded players. We were picking 26th.
Yeah, and I think to build into that, I imagine that the 45th overall pick in the last 5 years of drafts were probably a lot more impactful, a lot quicker than the 45th pick 10 or 15 years ago. I'm guessing. I'm sure that there are guys, of course, who had major contributions earlier in their career who were picked later. But it does seem like guys are coming to the league more pro-ready, so you have more of those expectations put on them. So the definition changes. A top 5 pick in the modern era might be an absolute alien, number 1 with a bullet 15 years ago. The guy who goes in the late 20s, early 30s, probably a top 5 pick. Again, in terms of like thinking about, I'm just seeing if there's like a good example. But most people think Darnell Wright could play today, right? If he's 24 on Dane Brugler's big board, he might not have a first round grade on the Bills, big on their big board. But FAU, Adetomiwa Adebawore out of Northwestern could play football. George Karlaftis was playing water polo an hour and a half ago, went at the end of the first round, and then ends up being a guy who leads the Super Bowl champions in snaps from the edge. I do think we are seeing the expectation on draft picks continuously raise over time, so that probably plays into that as well.
And I don't know if this is exactly what you were going for, but the player that comes to my mind is Bijan Robinson. That 15 years ago, he's a top 5 pick.
Oh, absolutely.
He might be. I mean, Reggie Bush and Mario Williams. Remember that with the Houston Texans had the number 1 pick?
Yes,
are they going to take Reggie Bush or are they going to take Mario Williams? And then they decided on Mario Williams, and it's like they're passing on Reggie Bush.
I remember being befuddled.
In the heck are they doing? Why are they not going with Reggie Bush here? This isn't smart. Bijan Robinson, 15 years ago, probably the number 1 pick in the draft. And instead, it's like, what if he's there at 31 for the Chiefs? Like something you would actually examine, because I don't think it's going to happen. I think he goes top 20. I think he probably goes top 15. I think 15, 16, 17 is probably the floor for him. But because it's such a different climate in the running backs in the view, and maybe that pendulum has swung too far the other way, but it's a different climate in that you've got a player 15 years ago that would absolutely have gone top 5 and maybe number 1 that is going to be outside of the top 10, and people just don't know which team is finally going to go, all right, too good a value here. This guy's too much of a difference maker. We're drafting him, even though people don't like running backs in the first round.
And I think this also, I mean, is going to probably lead to the same conclusion in terms of no one's ever happy with the draft board. But this year, and also to some extent last year, there wasn't the edge rusher who you just go, who was Jadeveon Clowney, right? And Will Anderson is a tremendous player. Jalen Carter on the interior, you wonder how this would have gone if he would have had a normal last 3 months.
Yeah.
He obviously hasn't. But like even being able to see the range of outcomes on a guy like Tyree Wilson at Texas Tech, I've seen some places where they're penciling him in at 2 and some places that were nowhere near that high on him before this pre-draft process really got rolling, right? When you don't have the superstar at the college level who has highlight plays, who also blows away the combine, who also has star power carried all the way in, that's even more true for the wide receiver class this year.
Absolutely.
That's the place where you've seen in years past, you go, man, these insert Alabama guy here from the last 5 years, or your Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson was not a top 5, top 10 pick. But this year, in a lot of these positions, I think you're seeing incomplete prospects, which I'm guessing is pretty damn normal throughout the history of the NFL draft. We've gotten really spoiled with how pro-ready a lot of these guys have been these last few years.
Myles Garrett comes to mind.
Yes.
Stud, the workouts, the athleticism, the size, weight combo off the charts. Production in college off the charts, highlight reels off the charts. Then he gets to the NFL, and all he's been is one of the better pass rushers in the NFL.
Yep.
since he got to the NFL. So that's a guy who was expected to be a certain player, and then has lived up to the expectations of being that certain player. Tex says, where do you think the Raiders go with pick number 7? I think they end up drafting a guy 3 years from now. We wonder why they drafted him. They end up taking the guy
that's been a safe bet.
They take the guy that 3 years from now we go, oh, and then the Raiders took that guy. Ugh, yeah. And right behind him, Atlanta selected this guy who's been an all-pro player for the last couple of years. That's what I think the Raiders draft, number 7.
Will Levis makes so much sense. And hey, in the Raiders' meager defense here in a world where they do take a quarterback, if you are giving Josh McDaniels another round here and you are considering yourself to be on the upswing, you don't believe you'll pick this highly again anytime soon. This is also an argument for the Seahawks, having the Broncos pick. They just gave Geno all that money, and obviously the Raiders have Garoppolo now, and that's a relatively short-term thing. We all know that's a pretty open secret. But if you are the Seahawks picking in the 20s, or you're the Raiders, and you think, you know what, we're going to be a good team this year that's on the fringe of the playoffs, this would be the year to take your quarterback, and I just, as a Chiefs fan in Kansas City, I wouldn't be terribly concerned about Will Levis and the Raiders. I don't quite see that. And that's not the situation that I think he belongs in.
I think a team that drafts Will Levis in the top 10 will be searching for a new GM in a couple of years. Now, mind you, a few years ago, I was pumped the Chargers took Justin Herbert.
Oh, I was too. Oh, man.
I thought he was just going to be a failure.
Yeah. We were wrong.
I was not right about that.
Nope.
I'm going to double down and say I'd be perfectly fine if the Raiders take Will Levis.
Yep, me too.
May turn out to be that, hey, jackass, Will Levis, one of the best quarterbacks in the AFC. And now look at the AFC West. It's Mahomes and Herbert and Levis and Russ. But Russ with Sean Payton, we'll see what that does. I'll take my chances on the Raiders having Will Levis. I think there are way too many flaws in his game. I'd rather take the upside of Anthony Richardson and just shoot for the moon.
Kansas City's official home of the NFL Draft. Sports Radio 810.
810 WHB, The Zone, presented by Google Fiber. We'll talk some Royals baseball. Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell him Les sent you. He joins us here for the noon hour. Les, what's up, man? How are you? How are you, sir?
I'm better than 4-13 is
You know
what I
what?
am.
You've always been better than 4-13. It's one thing I say. People are like, what's Les like in person? He's better than 4-13. I'll tell you that.
Yes, that's from now on. That is my
odd description that I've had
moniker, my motto, my life
that's
motto.
right.
I'm better than 4-13.
So are 28 other Major League Baseball teams. They are also better than 4-13. The Royals have the second worst record, which means they are one of the three teams right now with the top percentage of winning the lottery of the MLB draft. So the top three worst records get the same percentage of, ping pong balls in the whatever lottery thing. Now,
if they can get Wembanyama, that'd be huge.
That would be awesome. I would take Wembanyama. I mean, do they end up with Bryce Young?
That would also
That's the question.
that'd be interesting.
That's the question. Somebody to throw the baseball.
Are we cross-pollinating right now?
Yeah, I just because I can't even pretend to be excited about the baseball
I know.
draft.
Oh, I know.
It's not.
That was more of me being a smart aleck. Of
you could be worse than pick third.
No, look,
Yeah.
I'm saying let's go ahead and get those ping pong balls. I just don't.
They'll end up losing it somewhere since they were supposed to be like the fourth pick and they're picking seventh this year because they fell back and other teams leapt them in the lottery. That's cool, and it sucks because the Royals weren't actually tanking. Like, they were trying to put a good product on the field and were that bad. Other teams might have been trying to tank. Like, the lottery was to eliminate tanking, and the Royals like, hold on, we got screwed? We aren't tanking. Look at the guys we put on. We had Santana and Michael A. Taylor and Benintendi. We didn't trade Whit Merrifield. We didn't trade Scott Barlow. We weren't taking during the season. Come on.
A bunch of decisions nobody regrets.
Not at all. Not a one of them. All right, let's get into this because I think this is the bigger conversation around the Royals rather than.
I'm glad you know where to start.
Yeah. Well, let's start with I think the bigger conversation around the Royals right now because what to me was the bright spot of the season was Kris Bubic and developing the slider and what he looked like in those first two outings.
Surprising bright spot.
Absolutely. And now he's on the IL. The ominous words from Matt Quatrero yesterday. Can we play that, Drake, in case people did not hear the update? This was before the game yesterday. Our very own Josh Briscoe was out there covering the Royals.
You're welcome.
And it's about 30 seconds, but Matt Quatrero gives a Kris Bubic update as to where it stands right now.
Yeah, so the results were the flexor strain and some other underlying concerns that are going to require a second opinion, and that's what we're waiting on right now.
Excuse my lack of medical knowledge with it. You talked about the flexor strain. You saw the second opinion coming, but is that surgery next, or I guess what is the timeline with that if that does come about? Or?
Well, no, a flexor strain doesn't usually. That's just a muscle issue, but getting the second opinion to see if there's any other issues.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not ready to talk about surgery yet. No.
So it's one thing to have a flexor strain and say he's going to go on the IL for 15 days. It's another thing to say, well, we're just going to get a second opinion. But when you throw in some other underlying concerns and a second opinion with the flexor strain, that's where I get, nervous and pessimistic about what the next few days might be for Kris Bubic whenever they get the results back from the MRI or a second opinion and looking at the MRI and what those underlying concerns are, which is pretty scary. What do you make of the latest with Kris Bubic, that not only is he going on the IL, but they need a second opinion with some underlying concerns along with the flexor strain?
If you look up right now, flexor strain, within the first, second, or third, or all three, you're going to see something related to UCL.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be related to it. Now, I'm hoping that's not the case. First for Kris Bubic, second for the Royals, because Tommy John is brutal, and I know technology and medicine are different. You can come back from it, and I've known people that come back and were better pitchers. Maybe not for as long as they could have had a career, but they ended up being better. And so we hope that's the case. But, I mean, this just stinks. It's just one of those underlying issues, second opinions, flexor strains. I mean, how can you not think of a worst case scenario here? And And you can get that second opinion and say, well, it's a micro tear. If it is a tear, we don't know if it's a tear.
Well, strain typically is some sort of a tear.
Usually. So
hopefully it's only grade 1.
So let's say if it's a grade 1 or a micro tear, something like that. But so you rehab it and you don't have surgery and you take time off and you go through a throwing program. But micro tears, do they usually heal themselves? I'm no doctor, but it's not like, do they mold back together or can you protect it? I don't know. For me, for a tear in that joint usually means that if you eventually keep using it, if you take time off and you rehab it, it's going to probably tear more down the road. And so they got some tough decisions. And again, we don't know what it is. We haven't had the report yet or anything. But again, the things that scare you, flexor strain, second opinion, underlying issues, it all points to something that can't be good.
Last year, Zach Greinke had a flexor strain and missed a few weeks and came back. So that is at least good from a year ago that we saw.
Happened.
We saw him do that. There were, in fact, I saw the one of the stories last week. I was just looking at flexor strains, and it came up when Robbie Ray is going through this with the Mariners.
Mm-hmm.
He was shut down initially for a couple of weeks. They immediately moved it to at least a month. And there was talk in Seattle, like, okay, there were 4 pitchers last year that went on the IL with a flexor strain that returned that season. So it is not out of the realm of possibility. The concern for Seattle would be that Robbie Ray goes to the mound every 5 days and is always pitched, and now he's got to miss a month. That would be a concern, as the guy's never injured.
Right.
And now he's injured enough to where they're like, oh, we got to sit this guy out for a month. And that was immediate.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be concerned if I was Seattle about one of your bigger acquisitions last year on the mound for a team that's hoping they can, compete and make the playoffs, that he may be lost this year. But it's happened. Last year, including Zach Greinke, flexor strains returned to Major League Baseball. The way that I phrased it in the first hour is, not every flexor strain ends up with Tommy John,
right?
But it feels like every Tommy John started with some sort of a flexor strain issue there. That's the precursor.
That's the edge of your seat right now. Like, oh man, I mean, you can't help but that first inclination when you hear those things of, oh man, here we go. And again, you hate that for Bubic, you hate that for the Royals, but first you hate it for Kris Bubic because he's young and you want to pitch and you want to be healthy and you want to have a long career. So. Yeah, it's again, we're not doctors, we don't know, but you can't blame anybody for hearing these things and thinking, oh man. So you got to wait, and it's a painful wait.
And if people are wondering what the average, let's say he doesn't need Tommy John, let's say it's just a flexor strain, there's some underlying concerns that we were good with, and rest and an IL stint, but he's not going to go under the knife. Baseball Prospectus has their injury database. And pitchers that have flexor strains, not flexor strains that turn into Tommy John. So those are separate categories because that would skew the results. So pitchers that just simply had the flexor strain, the average time missed was right around 2 months. So if you're even wondering if Bubic doesn't go under the knife and it's a flexor strain, I wouldn't expect to see him before June.
Yeah.
That's probably because if he misses a month and then has a couple of rehab starts or something like that to make sure it's good to go, younger guy, you don't want to push it, with a guy that's only got 2 and change of service time, that you want to make sure he's good to go. I would probably guess June at this point. If it's
that's if the month goes on where he's ready to throw and go on a rehab assignment in a month. But if it's 2 months of not rehab assignment, then you go rehab assignment and you have to test it. Now you're talking 3 months, you're talking All-Star break, or longer.
And right now I would take that if it means there's no Tommy John.
Yes.
If it means that, okay, he's good. Like Greinke returned last year and he was fine. He strained the muscle and gave it a rest. It calmed down. And everything was good, and he continued, but there wasn't any damage underneath that.
Sure.
So hopefully that's the case with Bubic. I'd take 2 months right now. Misses 2 months. Because the worst-case scenario is he has Tommy John in April, and you're looking at April and May, maybe even June of next year before he gets back to pitching. And then sometimes it takes a while of sort of ramping up, and you may not be as good as you were before when you're first getting back to pitching on the mound. And if he's sitting there returning to, maybe to form to some degree in 2025, he's in his first year of arbitration. So you're talking about 3 years of team control at that point because It's service time. He's on the IL. This service, if he misses a year, he goes from 2 and change to 3 and change.
Yeah.
Service time without actually pitching for the Royals. So
But it hurts your case when you're not on the field.
that's exact. The first year of arbitration won't be an issue for the Royals with Chris Bubic.
Right.
But the issue would be if he starts to really come on. Well, now you only have really 2 years of Bubic. So that's worst case scenario. Hopefully that's not the case. Let's talk about getting to this point with Chris Bubic. I was really interested in your thoughts on this because, we talked about it from guys who didn't play the game, for me, past 6th grade. But damn, I was good in 6th grade. You should have seen me run around the outfield, just fly balls. I was a regular Kyle Isbell out there.
Junior high stud.
Yep. But
I was awesome until the kids were allowed to throw the ball.
Yep. Until 7th grade, I was a regular Edward Olivares out there, and I'm like, maybe I shouldn't play anymore? Probably not. Anyway. Where's the I don't want to blame is a harsh term. Responsibility. Yeah. Where's the responsibility in communication between pitcher or even just player in general and coaching staff? Because Bubic said it tightened up early. He felt worse after the game than he did during the game.
That's not a good sign, by the way.
Terrible sign. But he told Quatraro and Sweeney that he was good. Tighten up a little bit, but he's fine. He can keep pitching, and so they trusted him. His velocity was down. It was really cold, and he was getting hit around, and he still threw 100 pitches there. So, former player, where's that sort of lie with the player being completely honest, maybe with himself and the coaching staff maybe making a decision for the player to protect the player from himself? How do you view that whole thing where from the information that we know right now from what took place Saturday night?
Well, think about DeGrom, who left after 4 innings because something happened in his wrist, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so his first thing was, I'm probably going to be fine, but something did not feel normal. Now, granted, he's a little bit older than Bubic and a little bit more of a super. He's in that superstar category, of course. But at some time, he wasn't in the superstar category. So you just have to be mature. I think there's a little bit across the board. Now, had Bubic not said anything to his manager, pitching coach, or trainer, then I'd say it's all on Bubic. He should have, when there's a flexor strain, I completely get and understand there's a difference between being hurt and being injured. If you're hurt, you play. But again, you're a pitcher I'm standing in the outfield. I might, besides playing catch between innings, I might throw 2 or 3 during a game where I've really got to let it loose, but not every single pitch that's thrown in the game, I'm the one that has to throw it until they take me out. And so there has to be a level of maturity that trumps the gamer in you that wants to keep playing, that wants to be out in the field all the time. Oh, no, I'm good. I can handle it. If you're 39 and you want to keep going and you've been playing for 18 years, get out there, go ahead, suck it up. We're going to trust you more than the manager or the trainer on this one. But you are still a prospect. You're still a young guy coming up. You've developed this new slider. You've seen good things come. And maybe this is because he's thrown a new pitch and it's a little bit different torque than he's been used to his whole life. And that's what brought into it. So because he told them earlier, I lay the burden on Bubic because I can go in and have a doctor suggest a surgery. I can, I once got sick and they wanted to, and I knew what it was. And they said, well, we want to do an ultrasound just in case. Well, for me, I knew that the ultrasound, if it showed because of what my condition was, the ultrasound wasn't going to make it better or worse. I already knew it was going to be the same treatment no matter what the ultrasound found. So I declined my ultrasound. I don't need it. I already know what I have. It's not going to show it. So
plus, you didn't want to know the sex of the baby anyway. So.
I didn't. I wanted to. That's another topic. But the idea is that because he told them early, it doesn't matter what the result would be. It's a young pitcher. You got to take responsibility and pull him out. And I understand that, okay, it is a cold night and you're taxing your bullpen. It's why you have a bullpen. It's why you have the minor leagues. Have one guy throw an inning here or there. I mean, a bullpen is just that. The ideal situation is maybe the 6th, but okay, 7th, 8th, 9th. But okay, it's the 4th inning or the 5th inning. Okay, suck it up. I mean, you got to pitch. You're a bullpen guy. It's how you've trained your body. It's what your arm is used to. And so if he knew and he told him, everybody's at fault here. And responsible, like you said, Josh, responsible, accountable for it. And again, it's how baseball works, and it's not like, oh, if it is Tommy John surgery, we're not going to point back to, oh, Contreras, that's horrible, he should have, or Sweeney, you should have, or Bubic. Bubic has to get to the point where he's mature enough. Like, something's different. I'm still, just because I'm able to throw doesn't mean I should throw. Again, Jacob deGrom.
Yeah.
I'm able to throw. He stuck it to him for 4 innings. He could have stuck it to him for 6 or 7 innings. But the bottom line is, you have to be mature as a player and understand the difference. Understand it's cold. My velocity's down. No one knows your velocity's down more than anybody. You can feel it, and then you see the radar gun. And then if he's one of your better pitchers who had a better outing, get him out of there. Just get him out of there and go into your pen if you need to. And so, but hopefully all this talk will just be, okay, he just has a strain. He's going to be fine. He just needs to rest.
And deGrom, 4 innings, had a no-hitter with only 58 pitches. And if you're going to throw a no-hitter, this Royals lineup would be a good one to try to do it against.
But he also understands that this isn't a selfish thing, but he understands if I hurt myself and push this thing, now I'm going to miss 2 or 3 months of the season, not help my team win. This team paid me a lot of money to come here and be the ace, so I'm going to act like an ace and pull myself out because, there's a pretty good chance this Royals team is not swinging the bat well right now.
Yeah.
I trust my bullpen. I've got a pretty good bullpen behind me. You know, the guy that came in behind him only gave up 1 hit.
1 hit.
So, again, it's about maturity, knowing your situation. You got to grow up in those mental areas and understand when to pull the plug and when not to.
And I want to be fair, too, with, we talk about responsibility that's there and whatever may happen with Kris Bubic. I certainly will acknowledge that there's a possibility that no matter what the Royals did on Saturday night, this was going to be the result with Kris Bubic.
Absolutely.
That if there's underlying concerns there, then it would have been his next start.
Yeah.
That something would have felt the tightness.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
So there's something there.
Might have been, no matter the decision that was made on Saturday, we could be in the exact same position a few days from now. But all we have to go off of is the information that he said it tightened up early on. His first pitch of the game was a fastball that was 3 miles an hour slower than what his season has been. And it was cold. And he threw 100 pitches in the game. That's the information we have. But could have been a train heading towards that at some point anyway.
Yeah. And let's also remind everybody, too, we're not blaming that, oh, it's cold, he shouldn't have been out there. It's been a lot colder. I mean, opening day oftentimes is a lot. Last year it snowed on opening day for 3 minutes. And if your team makes it to the playoffs and it's the end of the season and you're playing in New York, it's cold in New York in late October, early November when the World Series is closing. So it's not just he shouldn't have been out there. Yes, he should have been out there. He should have pitched. He didn't know until he threw the pitches. So, just kind of a little situation that it's a little bit easier not knowing the results of what's going on to have that hindsight. But wait and see. But still, I just feel like if you felt it, get out of there.
Yeah.
It's not we're in the wild card if we win this game and it's game 163 that we have to have you in there. It's not that situation at all. So there is your gamer. You want to get out there. You want to throw. But come on, man. Pull the plug if you're hurt.
He's played probably high-level competitive baseball probably since he was like 12, 11, maybe even longer than that. But even not going back that far, let's just say when he got to Stanford. So that was 2016. For 7 years of his life, he has an idea of what hurt or injured is.
Right.
That the number of pitches he's thrown, the number of innings he's thrown in his career at Stanford and then through Wilmington and Lexington and on into Omaha and now at the Royals, like, he would know that, okay, this is different. This feels different than what has done before. And if it didn't feel different, and it's like I've pitched through this before, then it may just be unfortunate, that took place.
Right.
But if it did, then there is a more of a responsibility on Kris Bubic than it is with the coaching staff if he wasn't forthright and like, no, maybe I want to – if it was – no, it's a little tight, but I'm good. I'm good, guys. Don't worry.
And let's understand that Daniel Lynch coming off the DL soon with the shoulder strain and all that, because, at the beginning of the season, we kind of weren't sure, spring training, where's Bubic going to fit in all this?
Bubic was going to be in Omaha.
He was going to be in Omaha to start. I mean, this was going to be Daniel Lynch. And so then it was kind of an oops, maybe we would have made the wrong decision because Bubic's last outing, boy, he's got the slider working, and now we're talking about the new pitch and all these different things. And, okay, maybe things turned out the way it should have turned out. So the point I'm trying to make is that it's not like he was on the mound thinking, okay, Lynch is coming off, and I'm gonna probably get sent down, so I'm going to give them a reason. That does get in people's minds. If I'm the outfielder that I want to go 4 for 4 because I know so-and-so's coming off the DL, and I need to have a good game. I want to at least make them think maybe about somebody else. I want to stay here in the big leagues. Bubic is still a guy that is heavy in their future, and after that first outing and the new pitch and the development and what they were trying to change and do, that shouldn't have entered into his mind.
Well, it's interesting, though, but let me play devil's advocate there. If you are somebody like Kris Bubic who hasn't had a whole lot of success at the big leagues, especially with strikeout to walk, and you're mowing guys down, and this new pitch is like, wow, this guy is a dude now.
Yep.
That's a nasty slider that he's got, that he's putting guys away. That you are on the mound in that situation, and you go, you know what? I don't want to come out and be injured and have to go on the IL because I'm just now starting to get this rolling, and this new regime, I have an opportunity now to maybe capitalize and say, no, this is who I am now at the big leagues, and I don't want to stop that momentum. This is just a little tightness. It's because it's cold. I'm going to stay out here and keep pitching because I know that I can work through this because I'm not about to go on the IL and leave this game early because it's a little cold or I got a little tightness in my forearm. I'm pitching through this because I'm finally feeling success.
Here's what I'm hoping will happen too. If you are now going to have a psychologist or somebody that helps mental health in your dugout, and I think Melissa Lambert, right? Okay.
Yep.
So if you're going to utilize her, you're going to hire her and employ her in the dugout. And if I don't know if they've done this yet, if they haven't, they should now. But one of the topics isn't just about depression or anxiety or how you stay mentally tough or get the grind through. Another topic of how they should utilize her, and if she doesn't know, teach her, and if she already knows, utilize her in the situation, is this scenario of, look, maybe you're trying to push through. Maybe it's one of those situations where you're worried about getting sent out, getting sent down, getting released or something like that. Maybe she is a resource for you to talk those feelings through before they happen so you're able to make an educated decision. I know we're kind of going a little bit even deeper there, but look, if you're going to employ somebody like her, which I'm so glad they did, then you need to try to every situation that comes up that a player might be battling mentally, what they should do or their mental health, then utilize her in that area. Make that a topic of conversation in the offseason, in spring training. So when it comes up, they're much more apt, these young guys, they're much more apt to make the right decision.
Visiting with Les Norman, breaking the norm. He is presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them that Les sent you. We will talk about what's going on with the bats. And also, we have yet to really talk about the game flow, the new rules, and what we're seeing with different things in baseball, kind of the change that we're seeing in the different ways that it's being played. Last night, a crisp, clean 2-hour and 2-minute ball game with a total of...
That's from one hit, not from a pitch clock.
Sorry.
Come on.
A total of 0 players standing at third for an at-bat for either team.
Wow.
Neither team got a player standing at third for an at-bat. That's pretty remarkable. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling with Les Norman next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WH.
Les Norman, our guest, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. We're going to do the gameplay, the pace, the new rules here in just a little bit. There are a couple of ways of viewing the topic of clutch or runners in scoring position, because I think we could very easily go with the negative part. We could also point out, and maybe it's trying to just simply put lipstick on a pig, of, well, they are sitting 15th in plate appearances with runners in scoring position. So they are getting the opportunities. So what's better, to barely get the opportunities but to come through more often than not, or to be stacked with a lot of opportunities and you're just not coming through right now? Or is that something that will continue to be the case? Runners in scoring position, batting average, they are 30th. They're batting 188.
Out of how many teams?
There are 57 teams in Major League Baseball, I think, roughly. I'm not sure. Aren't there? Am I wrong about that?
No, Jason, there's not 57 teams in Major League Baseball.
Okay, sorry.
That was good.
I apologize. On-base percentage of 260, which ranks 30th. They have
out of 57.
They have a slugging percentage of 275, which also ranks 30th.
Out of 57.
And surprisingly, when they're 30th in on-base percentage and 30th in slugging, you can take a guess as to where they would be in OPS. They'd be dead last of 535, and I think it's like 40 points lower than the next closest, than 29th.
Yeah.
Are the Royals. They are OPSing at 535 with runners in scoring position in 155 plate appearances, an OPS of 535. I'm going to throw some names out here for you when you think about an OPS of 535. Billy Hamilton's career OPS is 618. Terrence Gore's career OPS is 580. Terrence Gore's career OPS is 580. The Royals in 155 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, OPS is 535. Ryan O'Hearn's lowest year with the Royals of OPS was 604.
Briscoe, so much pain on your face.
It's a painful thing.
Lucas Duda's final year with the Royals, when he was eventually just released in July, his OPS was 576. So in 155 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, the Royals have been 2019 Lucas Duda. They have been a lesser version of Terrence Gore. They have been 70 points worse in OPS than Billy Hamilton. And they are 70 points worse than Ryan O'Hearn's worst season as a team with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, this is where I interject for everybody that continued to ask me, like I said last week, spring training doesn't matter. Stop telling me that.
There was a tweet that went out yesterday, and I apologize because I took a picture of the numbers and I didn't take a picture of the full tweet. I will find out who tweeted it out, but it's with KCSN, some Royals stuff. But he did the work, so I'll give him credit. The Royals, this was before yesterday's game, the Royals OPS and batting average, all of that stuff. He goes back to 2002. There are 660 teams, different seasons going back to 2002. The 188 average ranks 660th out of 660 teams. The 29.7% strikeout percentage ranks 659th out of 660. Take that, whoever's in last place. And their 7.1% walk percentage ranks 657th. So as he writes here, there's a clear issue, and it's historically bad. Now, as you comment on that, I'll find out.
Josh Kaiser.
Josh Kaiser. Thank you very much.
At Josh Kaiser 40 on Twitter if you'd like to see it for yourself.
Way to go, Josh.
He did the work
Josh
there.
just have to stick together.
There you go. There you go. Does he have an E in his?
No, he does. He does, but not at the end.
Okay, very good. He's got two E's, making up for the one that you don't have.
Right, that's correct.
Yes. So it's not only bad, it's historically bad, but they have the 15th most plate appearances in all of Major League Baseball with runners in scoring position, so it's not exactly like they're 30th there.
It just means they're hitting some doubles, I guess. They're stealing some bases. They're getting to second base, but It's not the big home run or getting guys over, manufacturing. I mean,
is it a team thing? Is it an individual player thing? Is it a clutch thing? Is it trying to do too much thing? Is it all of the above? Why are we looking at a historically bad team with runners in scoring position this year so far?
Well, first of all, it makes me wonder about the whole generational change in people not bunting anymore. It's all about the home run, and that's archaic, or that's just we just don't do that anymore. I think that's part of it, the way the game has changed. I think part of it, too, is that if I'm a good bunter and you're not giving me the steal sign, I'm still going to bunt. If you're going to play back on third base, I'm going to play the small ball. I was not a big home run guy. I mean, in 10 years in minor league baseball, I think I had 107 home runs. I mean, that's barely 10 a year. So I wasn't some big home run threat. The wind was blowing out 10 days, and the pitcher made a dumb pitch. Hung a curveball with a slow bat, I guess. I don't know. But as a player, no matter what trends are, the game is still the same in the sense you know what you're good at and what you're not good at. I can hit second because I'll bunt a guy over. If there's a guy on second with a leadoff double, if Witt Jr.'s hitting in front of me, forget my batting average. I'm doing everything I can to go the other way, to get a bunt down, to get him into scoring position, because there's a reason the guy behind me is hitting third, and there's a reason the guy behind him is hitting fourth, and the reason the guy behind him is hitting fifth. So I think it's a little bit of people, some players sometimes maybe don't take pride in what their strengths and what their weaknesses are. I mean, you can't tell me that the pitchers are the best in baseball and the nastiest pitches are thrown and no pitchers make mistakes only when the Royals have a runner in scoring position for the last 21 years. I mean, that's not just some anomaly. I mean, there is something consistent going on there. And so eventually, and in 21 years, we've run through our share of managers. Right? I would have, during those times, would have loved to see, Ned Yost got him to the World Series 2 years and got a big win. Imagine what those stats would be if you pulled out 2014 and 2015. But I would also, during that time frame, would have loved to seen a Buck Showalter or a Joe Madden. And again, I don't know Matt Cottrell enough to say he's doing a great job, a bad job, or somewhere in between. I've got no idea. Because there's not a big. I won't make you drink more, Josh.
No, that's okay. I'm a little
sample size.
Mm-hmm.
So, eventually, you have to take responsibility for yourself as a player. Eventually, you got to, even though baseball is trending a certain way, you got to do things differently, and be able to find ways to produce runs. And I mean, we were talking in the break, Jason, about the different statistics where Hunter Dozier's got 15 strikeouts, and how many walks did he have? One walk in all of his appearances. So, and he's not the only one. I mean, Melendez already has 24 strikeouts, upwards of 9 walks in his plate appearances, and we've got guys that are hitting in the 0-hundreds and the 100s a couple, and so there's a lot of change that needs to take place. And I'll end with this point. You can say that it's only been 17 games, right? They're 4-13. But we're 3 games away from being 1/8 of the season over with. And that's an important point. And in about 2 or 3 more series, we now get to the magical 100 at-bats before we can legitimately start assessing what this guy's doing, what this guy's not doing. So if Melendez is striking out almost a third of the time, that means at least 1 time a game, maybe 2, he's going to strike out. Why is he hitting second? Those things I start questioning, and guys in certain positions, why are you putting him here? Why are you putting him here? And that doesn't even bring about the questions about why are certain people playing in defensive positions and being told they're going to stay in those defensive positions. So individual responsibility, trends. Why are we getting rid of small ball? Let's use big ball and small ball, but we're not a big ball team, so let's do things a little bit differently so this 4-13 doesn't turn into 8-26, which doesn't turn into 12-39 or whatever. My math's just quick math, but it's frustrating. I don't want to see this trend continue, as I'm sure Royals fans don't either.
Here's my theory on this.
Theorize, brother, theorize.
The Royals lineup sucks. That's my theory.
It's a rough lineup
on what's going on. And
you're talking about with runners in scoring position, or in general?
I'm just saying in general. Like, I think the guys at the top are able to get on base to a certain degree. Vinny Pasquantino has a week of getting on base at almost 500. Bobby Witt, has raised his batting average by like 100 points.
What a stretch he's been having.
Yes, since you and I had the conversation just last week.
Right.
He's been pretty good, even though, 0 for 3 last night, but he did walk in the game. Going back to Saturday night, and heck, even if I can go back to Friday night in the game against the Braves, the top 4, 8, 12, so that's 15 at bats, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times on base, 2 runs scored. So that would mean that they have got on base 20 times. The top 4 hitters have got on base 20 times going back to Friday night, and they've scored a total of 7 runs. So those top 4 hitters have gotten on base 20 times. Mm-hmm. They've scored 7 runs, those guys. Because when you're following Melendez, Witt, Pasquantino, and Perez with Isbel, Isbel batting 5th, nothing against Isbel, but that's an 8 or 9 hitter.
But what other options are there?
That's my point. Right,
that's
my point. It's Isbel, Massey has been bad. Reyes is batting, below the Mendoza line like most everybody else. Lopez.
Eaton's been rough. Lopez has been rough.
Yeah, like last night the lineup. Let's just go through that.
And
right?
why is Duffy not playing more? That really frustrates me. I'm really frustrated with Duffy not being on the field 5 out of every 7 games.
Yeah. So after Witt, Melendez, Pasquantino, and Perez, the 5 guys following: Isbel batting 217, Dozier batting 154, Matt Duffy batting 360, Nicky Lopez batting 200, and Nate Eaton batting 045. Like, to me, that's why they're not coming through with runners in scoring position, because I think the top of the lineup, Melendez has struck out a lot, and he's batting 158, but he has walked 9 times, so that's at least good. He's second on the team in walks, only 2 behind Vinny, and Vinny is the modern-day Kevin Youkilis of the Greek god of walks. Like, he just gets on base. Melendez striking out a lot, not making a whole lot of contact, but he is walking, so he's getting on base. Witt, like we talked about, doing some things over the last week. Salvi is still Salvi, although he is, struggling right now. Those 4 guys ahead of 5 guys that are batting 200 or worse and aren't getting on base and aren't hitting the ball hard.
Right.
Like, that's the problem with runners in scoring position. It's historically bad because 5 through 9, let's be honest, is a historically bad lineup for this Royals team. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is just awful.
Well, how do you go about your business then? We talked about this last week about are we not the team that is going to, mid-market, small market, blah, blah, blah. If you want to get the people in the lineup and win games every year and be in contention every year, are we satisfied with every 30 years?
Mm-hmm.
Can we not contend 4 out of 7 years for a wild card or a fairly consistent playoff spot? And you have to pay good free agents. You have to trade well instead of, no, we're going to hold off. We're going to go with the young. I understood it worked in 2014 and 2015, but again, we also had guys that were pretty good. Our infielder that won World Series here and then went with the Cubs, Ben Zobrist. Okay, that was a huge signing.
It was great.
Why can't we do somebody like a Ben Zobrist now?
Well, you need Sean Manaea to trade for Zobrist.
Right. We just and that's another thing too. We just keep sending guys away and look, I was thinking about this today, and this is going to be a big topic point for me. Players talk. They talk. When they're running out before games and they're going between, hey, dude, my contract's up. Tell me about what's your organization like?
Yeah.
What's this like? And because, pretty soon I'm getting tired of putting up these numbers. And I don't speak for everybody else, but I'm telling you, if I'm doing well and the organization is a perennial loser, you're not going to be able to retain your guys once they come up. You're just not going to be able to do that. It just so happens that right now, I'm worried that as soon as he is able, Vinny Pasquantino is gone. Bobby Witt Jr. is gone.
I think the second part probably true. I think Vinny Pasquantino, there's a decent chance you can get something done. And the reason I say that is, like, Pasquantino didn't have the big bonus. Like, I think, I'd have to go back and look. But the numbers that I looked at with, like, Melendez, Pasquantino, younger guys that would be up for, like, contract extensions, like, Pasquantino's made like a tenth of the money that those guys have.
Right.
So if you were to approach Pasquantino right now and say, hey, man, we'll give you $70 million over the next 6-7 years, can he pass that up and wait for
No.
arbitration and
No.
wait for a couple of years of free
No,
agency?
you're right. You're right.
He's made like $300,000 in his career.
Yeah.
Because last year he had the prorated minimum, and so far this year he only got like a $15,000 bonus or something like that out of
Right.
on the draft. That would be tough for him to go, nah, I'm going to wait around and I don't want to sign long term here with the Royals. Hey, Vinny, here's $70 million, dude. Now you can pick up the check when you're out with the guys,
Yeah,
instead
no
of Bobby
doubt.
Witt doing
and I'm
that.
sure
and-
he gladly would do that.
Yeah.
As I think about one of the things that we don't want to do when the Royals are playing like they're playing is it's really hard. We talk about this every break, or when I came in today, we all had that look on our face like, what are we going to say to spin this today?
Or just like,
What-
can we just not have a negative hour conversation?
Yes,
It sucks.
and now that I'm in the media, I've taken some heat for that. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
you're a player. You were a former player. You should understand. And I get where you're coming from. But again, are you not watching the games? And are you not watching the trends year after year? And the problem with the Royals, I think, a big problem is, I understand more than anybody. I feel bad for Hunter Dozier because he's really struggling and he's trying his best and he's putting in the work. The guy's a workhorse, man. And I feel bad for Singer, who now, it took him a while to start throwing the changeup, but now we've seen greatness out of this guy, and he's gotten hit hard in these couple outings and all that. I feel for them because they're trying and they're athletes and they're giving their best. But again, when you're an organization that sets up your players, like when Singer has a bad outing, the team can't take the hits because they're always in the middle of a losing streak. Or when Bubic, his arm is hurt, and hopefully it's not a blowout situation. It's just a rest thing. But you have some of your star guys or guys that you put up on this pedestal that then fail and go through. I mean, I wouldn't have thought Michael Massey would have hit 380. But I wouldn't have thought he was hitting in the 100s, the mid to low 100s or something like that. He doesn't have a lot of service time. He's going to be around for a while. He's a good player and a former Chicago boy, by the way.
Yeah.
So, but again, when you don't trade and you don't put good players on a team because it's always about, well, we're going to wait, we're going to play it safe, we're the mid or small market, we're not going to spend the money, you set yourself up when your stars struggle, you can't take the hits. And it elevates the negative that they do even more. And so then the media pounds on them. And then there's the mental stuff that comes in. I feel like the team has got to do a better job setting your team up to allow your superstars, your stars or your better players in the game to be able to go through these stretches by surrounding good players around them so you can still win games instead of heaping all of the stress and the lack of performance and all that on these guys. Then we're going to have something to talk about even when they struggle.
Les Norman breaking the norm. One more segment. We'll take a time out. It's The Zone presented by Google Fiber. More next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone.
The Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. What do you think of the pace of play? Roughly 30 minutes shaved off per game. Last night, roughly an hour and 20 minutes shaved off a Royals game down to 2 hours. Crisp, clean, nobody standing at third base. That's a fun one. But about 2
What was
hours.
the attendance? Well, did anybody know the attendance last night?
Not many.
I'm going to tell you what the ESPN box score says, and then you guys can tell me if you think that's ticket sold or not. 11,000.
No.
Lower.
Yeah. I take the under.
Lower.
Take the
Lower. I don't know. I'll go 8,750, Bob.
I'll take $1 if that's the
so
$1, Bob.
What does the pace of play matter if your attendance is down so low, and your attendance is down so low because you're 4-13? I mean,
Well, that's just specifically with the Royals. I mean, just in baseball
I mean,
in general, just enjoyment of the game.
Fine. I mean, the pitch clock is the pitch clock, and they're doing their thing, and it throws to first. Look, to me, it's all peripheral meddling, but if you're going to keep it in and I don't get to say anything about it, okay, I'm going to move on. I'm not going to keep whining and complaining about it. If there are fans out there that enjoy the fact that it's a 2-hour game and they paid their ticket or they watched it on TV and then they got to go on and do other things, all right, fine. Do the players get more time with their family? Bonus. Outstanding. Pace of play has nothing to do with their salaries. So, okay, great. That's fine. For me, and here's the old school grumpy old man. I enjoy 2 hours and 45 minutes of watching. I enjoy the chess match between the pitcher and the catcher in a 3-3 game in the ninth inning. I enjoy the fact that I only got, not literally, but sometimes, only got 4 hours of sleep last night because I stayed up watching the 14-inning West Coast game because regulation was 3 hours and they weren't forcing them to get in the box or forcing them to do this or that. Again, I know that there are other people out there, and you can be thinking, oh, come on, you're just – look, if you like the fast pace of the game, I seriously am happy for you. You're the fan, not me. You're the fan. So enjoy it, pay your money, do your thing. I'm over it all. I'm just over it.
They just announced the potential next round of rule changes today. You know, they like
awesome!
Yeah! You know how they like to use the Atlantic League to test things out.
Yeah, of course.
They just announced those today. A designated pinch runner can enter at any time and then return later.
It's very, very 10-year-old baseball.
By the way,
really
that's not the Atlantic League. That's my softball when I
I
was
was
7
going
years old.
to say that's very 10-year-old.
That's from the backyard, Chucky Anderson.
10-year-old or 45-year-old.
Well, you know this. Blue, catcher's on second. Catcher's on second. We get a runner for our catcher. Come
Courtesy,
on.
please. Time.
Courtesy runner. Catcher's on second. Courtesy runner there, Blue.
I think that you can't allow them unless you yell on a microphone at a big league game. Time, courtesy.
Yeah, it works. And then a one-time disengagement rule. Pitchers can only disengage once. It's currently twice in the majors.
Wow.
And then the double, Jason Stark has called it the double hook. If the starter exits before the end of the fifth inning, the team loses the DH.
Oh, that's absurd.
Gosh,
now that
dude.
I think is
it's becoming not baseball.
Yeah, that I think.
That's meddling. To me, that's just stupidity. It's too much.
I think what they've done now is fine. Leave it. Let's continue watching baseball like this. The games are, and I know people because I talked about this on Sunday, and I get the response from people like, well, so you're excited that you watched, fewer or you were out there for less time. Little man and I, we went to the game on Sunday. I was back at the house in Overland Park before 4:10. Game started at 1:10. It wouldn't have been over by the time I was back home.
Yeah.
You'd be like, oh, well, cool, you watched less baseball. Well, I watched the same baseball. It was just a quicker pace to it.
Sure.
And it was nice to get back home and, get ready for, dinner and stuff like that, as opposed to leaving at 4:20, 4:30, getting home at 5. That was nice.
That is nice.
I'll be honest. That
Next
was
year,
nice.
I want you to know that there's going to be a chess-baseball hybrid where the middle infielders can only move like rooks and move laterally, where the corner infielders can only move like bishops and move diagonally. And then only the center fielder can move more than 10 feet. Everyone else has, like the queen, everyone else has to,
Can I interest you in a little Chiefs breaking news while we're at it?
You can interest
please.
They have a new quarterback.
They've traded for Aaron Rodgers.
No, maybe better for you, Jason. Pat McAfee reporting that Blaine Gabbert is signing with the Kansas City Chiefs.
There's a good one there.
There you go, Blaine.
How about that?
That's Super Bowl champion Blaine Gabbert. Darn right. Les, you're the man.
See you guys.
Appreciate it, brother. Breaking the norm, Les Norman, truckmovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and amazing garage floors.
Kansas City's official home of the NFL Draft. Sports Radio 810 WHB, Kansas City.
Sports Radio 810 WHB is the official broadcast partner of the NFL Draft in Kansas City. We'll have live broadcasts from Radio Row, the NFL Experience, Union Station, Arrowhead, Power and Light District, Big Brothers Big Sisters Draft Night event, and from our broadcast headquarters. We'll bring you all the selections live as they happen, interviews with Brett Beach and Andy Reid, and introduce you to the newest Chiefs draft picks. So listen to the NFL Draft with me, Soren Petro, Curtis Siebold, and former Chief Mark Borichter on your home of the NFL Draft in Kansas City. Sports Radio 810 WHB.
QC Kinetics patient Diane Richardson saw her brother-in-law have surgery for pain in his elbow.
My brother-in-law, after that surgery, had his arm in a sling for almost 6 months, extensive PT, pain medication, a lot of restrictions of what he could not do.
So when Diane's husband, Greg, had a similar problem, she encouraged a different treatment, regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics. And the experience was like night and day compared to his brother.
After 6 months, nothing. He hasn't felt any pain, and that has been 2 years since he's had treatment.
Plus, no drugs and no downtime.
He was literally out golfing when he wanted to and doing whatever he wanted to. It was probably 9 months before my brother-in-law got back out on the golf course, and my husband was on the golf course the entire time. And he was so elated. He said, Diane, game changer.
Before you have surgery.
football. 3 different doctors have all cleared him to play. He had a press conference today saying that he will be attempting the comeback to the NFL. So some good news there from Damar Hamlin that he has been completely cleared to return and to play football. The other news going on today, that is the Steelers are finalizing a trade to acquire Allen Robinson from the Los Angeles Rams. Allen Robinson's cap hit will be $10 million this year. So we'll be interested to see what the compensation is, what the trade terms are for Pittsburgh, what they sent to the Rams for Allen Robinson. Do they restructure the contract for Allen Robinson because he's got 1 year left on his deal after this year, so 2 years left on his contract? Do they restructure something and take less of a cap hit this year? Do they just simply go in with it and say, he's a $10 million cap hit this year, a $10 million cap hit next year, but also because there's no guaranteed dollars in dead cap hit for them because the Rams take on that, they could have him for a year and then move on from him if it doesn't work out for the Steelers. So would be pretty interested into seeing what the compensation would be. Allen Robinson, not nearly the player that the Rams were hoping they were going to get last year after having just phenomenal years in Chicago, 2019 and 2020, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons, 100 receptions in each year, close to it, 13 total touchdowns in those 2 years. And since then, he's had 700 total receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. That final year with Chicago, that it was just like, it's just a bad year. He's still the guy he was a couple of years ago. And he's just 28 years old. And then he had 33 receptions for 339 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Rams. So a lot of threes in there. 33 for 339, and 3 touchdowns. So we'll see what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to send to the Los Angeles Rams. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810. Let's hear from James Palmer if we can. James Palmer from the NFL Network. We know that Patrick Mahomes and the receivers and running backs are down working out with Patrick Mahomes and not at the team facilities. Andy Reid talked about that longer season, etc. That let the guys get away and spend time on their own as long as they're doing the meetings and stuff. That they can virtually be a part of that. Here's James Palmer talking about Patrick Mahomes and the training camp that goes on in Texas.
Remember, we were talking about this when Andy Reid told us over Zoom a year ago, and that was when kind of we all found out this is what the Chiefs were going to do, and now they're doing it again, where the phase 1 is over Zoom, and a lot of those skill guys are going to be down with Patrick Mahomes in Texas, and everybody's going to be training on their own, and the Chiefs have done this the last couple of years because they've gone to the Super Bowl. The season has been long in Andy Reid's mind with all the extra games they have played, so they want the strength and conditioning portion of phase 1 to be done really remotely, and then they zoom in. Now, the success that I was told throughout last year in training camp and throughout the season of what Patrick Mahomes did with that group was over and over again. And remember, we talked about it so much because it was a group of new faces. It was Juju Smith-Schuster. It was Marquez Valdez-Scantling. It was Sky Moore. All of these new faces that haven't been in the system, they had turned over their wide receiver room to an entirely new group. Now, this year, they can even accomplish more while they're down there because these are much more than just throwing sessions, I'm told. There's a lot more the group does with Patrick Mahomes down there that they've all been in the system for a year. Specifically, keep your eye on Kadarius Toney, who they expect high things for. They believe, and Andy Reid said it, he's still young. He's still young in their system, but he did play half a year in it. Sky Moore got a full season in it. Marquez Valdez-Scantling got a year in it. So now these guys can really start off in maybe a different spot than they did a year ago.
So that's the hope. More work with Patrick Mahomes, et cetera, down in Texas, and him holding that training camp, and also that trust from Andy Reid to have a guy like Patrick Mahomes and say, you know what, you're down there doing those things. There's an expectation that I know that will be met with you down there. That I don't have to have, my thumb on everything here with the team, and I can let a few things go that I don't have full control over, and that is you down there in Texas working out with those particular guys. Patrick Mahomes was asked about Justin Ross yesterday, in the press conference that has been a topic of conversation with the Chiefs and wide receivers since the wide receiver was an undrafted free agent by the Chiefs and workouts and things like that. Patrick Mahomes, while being asked about Justin Ross, started smiling and looked like he got pretty excited to talk about one Justin Ross. Here's Patrick Mahomes weighing in on what he sees from now the second-year receiver.
Yeah, I mean, the talent's through the roof. I think anybody can see that, and I think he's gotten better and better. And even though he wasn't active all year long, he was in the building and he was able to see the guys and how we do things and listening and being in some of the meetings and stuff like that. And so I'm excited for him, man, to get out there and be able to get the reps and practice and get the little fine details that we like to do in this offense. And like I said, the talent's there. He works his tail off. I'm like, man, you got to ease up a little bit. He wants to run every route 100 times, but you rather have to ease up on the guy, make him kind of ease up on himself, but he wants to work and to be the best player that he can possibly be.
So there's Mahomes talking about Justin Ross. Who will he be the off-season darling? Again,
he already is. This conversation's over.
I am rooting for him. I hope he is amazing. I hope he's serviceable. I hope he's just even at minimum a good receiver. Oh, just turn out to be that. That's great. I don't need him to be, AJ Green. I don't need him to be T. Higgins. Don't need him to be AJ Brown or anything.
Need him to be better than all those guys. I
That's
agree
right.
with you.
That's right. I need him to be a combination of Jerry Rice, Tyreek Hill, and probably Calvin Johnson.
Yeah, I would also go ahead and just expand that a little bit to say Travis Kelce and also Patrick Mahomes.
Thank you.
I need him to see the field like a quarterback and also be the greatest tight end of all time.
That's right. While being the combination of Calvin Johnson, Tyreek Hill, and Jerry Rice.
That's right. Yeah, I just don't want to sell him short.
Right, but I don't want to put too high of expectations on him.
I think we might be putting not enough expectations on him.
I didn't throw in Terrell Owens too.
Exactly.
So, we're not going to go that route.
Do you know how coal turns into diamonds? Pressure.
Just put it on. Yeah, but it can bust pipes too.
Let's go Calvin Johnson too.
That's right. Look, I want Justin Ross to be awesome.
I was thrilled when they signed him as an undrafted free agent.
Me too.
A perfect UDFA signing.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Great. Awesome. He's still recovering from the injury, and he had the redshirt year last year, which is perfectly fine. I know it's a difference in money, so I will preface it and acknowledge up front there's a difference in being an undrafted free agent and somebody that's going to sign for what was $15 million for the Ravens. But the common talk around Odell Beckham Jr. is, you're talking about a guy who hasn't had a good year since 2019. Like, you're talking about a guy that, 2019 was the last time he was, that type of receiver. Now, that is with the money that we're talking about. Justin Ross had his amazing year in 2018 in college. Mm-hmm. Not 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns in the NFL. He had his awesome year and 1,000 receiving yards and however many touchdowns in 2018. It's been longer for Justin Ross than it was for Odell Beckham Jr. And Odell did that in the NFL and did it for a number of years in a row. That's my brakes pumping with Justin Ross, that I preface it by, I hope he's awesome. I hope he's amazing. I hope he's the best receiver in the NFL. I hope he realizes some of the potential that was there when he was at Clemson. It's like, okay, this guy has all the talent in the world like Patrick Mahomes talked about. That would be great. But I don't think we can diminish Odell Beckham Jr.'s potential impact by going, 2019, it's been a while. And then, hey, Justin Ross should be counted as a part of this wide receiver group. Come on, Justin Ross, you got to throw him in the group too. I'm not going to put him in the group until he is in the group. And when he is, great, let's do it. Let's roll, and hopefully he's phenomenal.
As the founding member of the Justin Ross hype train, as I so clearly have been at this point, my minor pushback, or at least the logic for why people why people aren't having total cognitive dissonance in that game, is because for Odell, it's on the wrong side of 30 for a wide receiver.
Absolutely.
For Justin Ross, it's all still potential. He hasn't even peaked yet. Think about how high the peak could be if he does in fact peak.
No, there's context.
That's, sure. I think that is like the bit of logic. I also think it is a good reminder that we're not talking about a guy who just missed his rookie season, but was performing or playing at all just before that, or it's not just a neck back scary injury that made you legitimately concerned about his ability to go forward playing football, all before the foot injury last year. I mean, it is. Here's the optimist's view with a pessimist's heart. It's all upside with Justin Ross. Yeah. If your expectations, your genuine expectations for what he will provide, if that is relatively low, anything he brings is going to be a celebration. My concern is that the expectations are starting to turn towards Sky Moore, and Kadarius Toney all in their second years in the offense, et cetera, when he wasn't even on the field for it last year. And again, that's not a character flaw. It's not an insult. It's just a reminder of where we're at right now. Anything he gives the Chiefs value-wise is justification for his, again, at the time, 100% fabulous undrafted free agent signing. Mm-hmm. If they would have spent that 7th-round pick on him instead of Isaiah Pacheco, I would have been happy, and frankly, happier at the time, I imagine. As soon as I started watching Isaiah Pacheco, I saw the traits, right?
You liked him early.
If they would have gone with Ross and anywhere late in the draft last year, I would have gone, oh man, what an exciting, interesting development this could be. And now I might be pumping the brakes on Ross just like I would be with Sky Moore right now, of like, hey, we need to see this and to be able to properly project where it's going. But I think more people have tampered down their expectations for Sky Moore, even maybe too far at this point. But Ross is a complete unknown, total blind box. Anything could be in there. Maybe it's a boat.
Yeah, the context of the money and the age matters with Odell Beckham Jr. and Justin Ross. Just that one little piece of like it's been since 2018 since he's had that awesome year. But to your point, it's an undrafted free agent. I remember this time last year talking, leading into the draft, that Justin Ross was like, here's the 7th-round mock draft, 3rd round, Chiefs select Justin Ross from Clemson.
Yep.
And it was like, you know what? I'll take it. If they're going to get a guy with that in the 3rd round, that if he was healthy, he'd be a top 15 pick.
Yep.
You get him in the 3rd round, boy, that is a perfect Veach pick right there. And then the 2nd round came and went, and the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th and the 6th and the 7th, and he was never drafted. And it was like, wow, why wasn't he ever drafted? And then you find out that, like, he was on like 4 teams' boards. Yep. That was it. Like, so many teams just said, no, we're not even going to sign him as an undrafted free agent. And so, the Chiefs were one of them that did that, which great. And you got to understand that there might be some issues there with your that first year with some injuries. And that foot injury, what's that like? Okay, you get him into camp, and you're like, all right, this thing is not healing right. Let's just go ahead and go in there and fix it again. We'll see you next year. And hopefully that is the case. But as far as the hype goes and where I will, buy in, I mean, it seems like it was a long time ago with that year at Clemson. It was like, this guy's going to be a top 15 pick. He was 18 years old when that happened.
Exactly.
He's only 23 right now.
Exactly.
He doesn't turn 24 until the end of this year in December. He's a 23-year-old. He's not 26 trying to recover from injuries, and he'll eventually realize that one day. Maybe he'll get it going.
This isn't Josh Gordon again, right? Like, that's why it's even more enticing, because there's legitimate potential that he has not peaked yet.
Yeah, absolutely. He's 23 years old. And he has the talent and ability as an 18-year-old in the ACC at Clemson to have the 1,000 yards receiving, and that's your natural talent and ability that's there that you can ultimately refine. Patrick Mahomes has loved the talent, has talked about it. We mentioned who was it Cynthia Freeland that had discussed that Pat Mahomes Sr. She asked him about, something. He started talking about Justin Ross last year, just unprompted. It's like, okay, well, the hype train is getting crazier and crazier. Well, had he had a healthy foot, maybe we're talking about Justin Ross on the Chiefs this year and having a good season last year. Maybe we are, and I hope that's the case. But right now, I'm going into this season or the draft with the Chiefs having these 5 receivers that we've talked about, and then a draft pick, maybe 2, and then we'll see how it all shakes out in training camp. And I hope Justin Ross gets in there and pushes these players, and the Chiefs have to make a tough decision and have to cut somebody that they sign, whether it's Justin Watson or Richie James or something like that they've got to make a decision, or a 6th-round draft pick that they spent on a wide receiver that, they were throwing a dart, and unfortunately, guys, sorry, we gotta release you. It's just not working because we got this Justin Ross guy who's just too good for us to move on from. We'll move on from a draft pick. That would be amazing if that was the case.
Can I circle back to the Texas training camp thing real quick that we heard James Palmer talking about? When I was listening to that clip, I think I saw it yesterday, whatever, cutting it in today. 2 things about it they just make me smile. You can probably hear me smirking because these 2 things are so funny and such perfect little encapsulations of how different things are. The first thing that leaps out to me is just this idea that Patrick Mahomes just goes to his home state, brings the majority of at least the newer skill position guys with him, and is just basically running a training camp in his backyard, so to speak. It just tickles me because that's not normal.
Yeah.
It's becoming normal, and it's going to become more normal because this year he was down there at some point with Trey Lance. And so if Trey Lance ever becomes the definite guy in San Francisco, he'll do the same thing. I bet Jalen Hurts does something similar. These young face of the franchise quarterbacks on something between 5 and 10-year deals, I bet will start doing similar things because they realize there's a loophole here. But Mahomes will have been the first to really do it in earnest this way. Which leads me to the second thing that just makes me laugh. Patrick Mahomes did something truly special. Patrick Mahomes changed Andy Reid's offseason plans.
Right.
Do you have any idea how difficult that has to be to get Andy Reid to do things differently in season preparation? And it's multifaceted, right? Because they moved to Zoom for the pandemic, and this ends up all coming together where now it's, you know what? You guys stay virtual. I bet I could count on one hand how many times Andy Reid in the previous 20 years of his coaching career said the phrase, no, don't come to the facility. No. Stay where you're at. Don't come into the building. That man lives in the building.
Well, I think it's also part of sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I didn't know if you were done with
this.
Your
It's
point.
all just how tickled I am that Andy Reid is here having his offseason rescheduled by a quarterback who found a better way to do it.
It helps that they've won the Super Bowl twice, and he did mention the longer seasons.
That's the other part, yes.
And also I think it's part of the, hey, here's the carrot back to you, but at training camp and during the season we're working.
Right.
We're doing things that maybe veterans that are coming in aren't used to. A Le'Veon Bell, a LaShawn McCoy, maybe not used to going about certain ways and certain things. And training camp's going to be tougher. Every single player that's a free agent that comes into the Chiefs that's played on a different team talks about it. Oh, it's a faster pace. We're getting a lot of stuff done. There are a lot of reps that go on. I can't remember who pointed this out, but the week of the Super Bowl, to look at the injury reports, and the Eagles had 20 guys on their injury report, and half of them were rest. Yep. The Chiefs didn't have that because their players were practicing. That's just simply what Andy Reid does. But here's the bone I'll throw to you, and that is, hey, virtual. You go work out on your own. I trust that you're doing that. It was a longer season. Just be on the Zoom, ready for the meetings. If you're rehabbing, I'm probably going to need you here.
Sure.
Doing some of those things. But if not, hey, wherever you're at, be there for the meetings. Continue to get your work done, which as a professional you should be doing anyway. But I don't need you to fly here and stay here in a hotel or whatever it might be. If you live somewhere else, or you can be with your family somewhere else while also attending those Zoom meetings. I got you, longer season. But understand, late July, we're going to be working until early February.
And I wonder how much of it is Andy Reid, in his later coaching years saying, hey, no, do get some more family time. Do the things that are good for your life balance. And I also wonder how much of it is Mahomes saying, Coach, we can get more work in if we just do it away from the facility.
Yeah.
The NFLPA is not going to call me. The NFL's not going to call you. I'm just throwing the ball with my buds. We're just hanging out in Texas. I was just at home and MVS, well, what's up, man? Yeah, come on in. Justin Watson, you're here too. That Justin Ross, this massive coincidence. And well, you know what? If we're not at the practice facility, I could probably throw you a few balls. I think that was probably the most convincing argument for Andy Reid is, listen, you give us meetings on Zoom. I'm going to run these guys out here. And this is a huge part of it, which is why Trey Lance is not going to be doing this anytime soon and why Mahomes can and is. you've got to trust your quarterback to implement the same principles of your offense and the same details precisely. Like, you cannot go have them learning some part of the language and then they get back to St. Joe and now stuff is different. That can't happen. And for Andy Reid, when this is his offense in like every sense of the word, right? Evolved, lots of other contributors, but it's an Andy Reid offense. For him to say, nope, Pat, here are the keys. You know what we're doing here. You understand why we're doing all of this. It's not that we needed another example, but it's even more testament to that relationship.
Working, the fact that it worked last year.
Yep.
Gives you even more faith that, okay, you guys did this. There's a trust that they're not just going to, jack around the whole time and like, oh, hey, no, we'll be there for the, and they're seen at, clubs and everything. Like there's none of that going on. I also wonder, like, this is apropos of absolutely nothing or doesn't even matter, but will it be in Dallas in a couple of years with him building the football field in his backyard?
I don't know.
Like, that he's got like a full-size field in his backyard to where I wonder if he's down in Dallas working out at a certain field that, hey, a bunch of people aren't just going to randomly show up to because they found out that Patrick Mahomes is working out at, Lee Summit North High School, that Patrick Mahomes is up at Park Hill, getting some work in. What?
Yeah.
And then everybody just drives up there and just stands outside waiting for autographs, as opposed to, hey, Patrick Mahomes is working out with the wide receivers at the football field in his backyard.
I think we might be like 5 more years away from him having to do this in like an aircraft carrier, like that. They did a tip-off college basketball game on an aircraft carrier a few years ago, right?
Yep.
I feel like that had some issues. Don't worry about it. That's going to put a dome over it. I don't really care. They'll
fine.
figure it out. We're going to need some anti-drone stuff as well because we can't have the Patriots trying to get any early info, but I think that could definitely work.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling. The Zone presented by Google Fiber. More next.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Mahomes working out and Trey Lance being down there too. The picture of Mahomes and Trey Lance standing next to each other. I don't know who tweeted it out, but it was so brilliant. Said that Trey Lance looks like he was cast in a low-budget film to play Patrick Mahomes. And it totally does. He totally
really does. My favorite version of that, before that one, which is excellent, is that Daniel Jones looks like he was cast to play Eli Manning in a movie about Peyton Manning. And that one really gets me.
That's awesome.
That one stuck in my head for a long time.
That's pretty good. But that picture of Mahomes and Trey Lance standing next to each other is perfect. That Trey Lance was cast to play Patrick Mahomes in a low-budget Disney movie that's straight to DVD.
And I don't want to make fun of people's appearances. Everybody's got their own stuff, and everyone's got some things you could probably poke some fun at.
Don't know what you're talking about.
But Trey Lance's barber needs to get fired or hired. I'm not sure, but it's a tough. They look very happy hanging out together, and I like Trey Lance.
Blaine Gabbert,
bring him home.
Kansas City Chief. Blaine Gabbert returning to Missouri, where he grew up, played high school football, also college football.
Did he?
Tampa Bay the last couple of years. His cap hit, if you're wondering, the last couple of years, because there is not any, there's no news on the contract or anything, but his cap hit in 2021 was $2 million. His cap hit last year was $2.25 million. So probably right around there is what Chad Henne's cap hit was.
Yep.
So I'd expect it to be along those same lines. And obviously the Chiefs we're not ready for Shane Buechele, if needed, to take over. And this means that, any mock drafts that may have had the Chiefs taking a quarterback can more than likely eliminate that, because they do like Shane Buechele, just not yet to the point of if Mahomes goes down, then he can be the quarterback. So they sign Blaine Gabbert to simply take the spot of Chad Henne. Buechele plays the same role, and then you wouldn't need to draft a quarterback in the 5th, 6th, 7th round, which some people thought would be the case.
But it's interesting because I remember we talked about Chad Henne plenty, and we talked about Shane Buechele plenty. That I think it was the Cardinals, right, who tried to poach Buechele off the practice squad, so the Chiefs brought him up to the active roster and then had him there as a healthy scratch almost all year long. I think that was mid-season. But for a good chunk of the year, Buechele was on the active roster and never playing, which really to me felt like a legit investment in him, and saying once Chad Henne's gone, Buechele's going to be the guy. Clearly not the case now. I don't mind that. If they want to have quarterbacks in their 30s backing up Mahomes who have thrown professional passes, who could put it together a drive like Chad Henne's done a couple of times in the playoffs, no less. That's super valuable. That doesn't bother me to pay Blaine Gabbert, but it does make me wonder where they're at on Buechele. And also, I guess we'll find out if it's actually Nate Taylor tweeted of The Athletic, tweeted Gabbert's expected to sign a 1-year deal. Not surprising, but if it was a multi-year deal, you'd go, oh, okay, so he's going to be here for a little bit. Maybe it still is Buechele if he gets fully formed, and then the Chiefs can have the younger backup to the veteran Mahomes, I suppose. But Gabbert backing up Mahomes feels about right to me.
Yeah, 19, 20, 21, and 22 were all 1-year deals for Blaine Gabbert. So he has just signed us, even with the last 3 years being with Tampa.
Yeah.
Each year was a new 1-year contract, not the 2 years like they gave Chad Henne. That they knew he was just going to be around for a little bit. They wanted to keep him around, and he wasn't out there looking for a starting gig. He was good where he's at. I'll fill in when I have to, work with Patrick Mahomes. And Chad Henne has earned his free drinks in Kansas City for life. In what he did in a couple of drives in the playoffs. Absolutely. The second half against the Browns, and of course the 98-yarder against the Jags. That was a phenomenal drive, and the Chiefs ultimately, difference in the game, and some other things of just being able to hold down the fort while Patrick Mahomes was getting his ankle looked at, and everybody was holding their collective breath that it wasn't broken and there wasn't a fracture or anything like, O'Neal Cruz with the Pirates. He has a rough collision at home. He's got the high ankle sprain, the ankle twist the same way that Mahomes' ankle twisted inside. He could barely put weight on it. He walks off the field. They go and have x-rays. Broken bone. Out 4 months. That was the fear when everybody's like, no, don't go back for x-rays. No, Andy, don't make him do that. Don't make him go back for x-rays. No. And then to see him, like, come back on the field, like, okay, they were negative. Okay. All right, okay. Well, here's how bad the injury was. Here's Patrick Mahomes weighing in on an update to his health. But, let's play the clip on the ankle injury that he doesn't think, says that it won't linger into the season.
I don't think the ankle. I feel like the foot was way more serious, I guess you would say, than the ankle has been. I mean, the foot with having the surgery and having that cast on, it just really cut my mobility down a lot. And so I had to really work through that even into the season that next year. With the ankle, I've felt like we've improved, especially these last few weeks, a ton. As far as the swelling has went down finally, and I don't have that soreness just as much as I was having it after a few days of work. And so with the improvements that we're making these last few weeks, I have a great feeling that by the time we get to training camp, there won't even be any question at all. And so we'll continue to work through it at OTAs. I don't think there'll be any limitations on reps or anything like that, especially if I'm not running around a ton. But at the same time, we'll continue the rehab process and making sure that by the time we get to training camp, I can just roll out there and feel perfectly fine.
The last few weeks, the swelling has finally gone down. The last few weeks. He injured that on January 22nd.
Yeah, man.
January 22nd. It's April 18th. Now, he said the last few weeks, so let's say even April 1st. Mm-hmm. The swelling has finally gone down. There's not as much soreness after working out like there was, and I should be good to go for training camp. This man hurt his ankle on the 22nd, played the 29th, and then won the Super Bowl on the 12th. And should be good and 100% for training camp.
About time, man.
I mean,
I was sick watching him play in the Super Bowl.
He's still not 100%. He's saying his ankle is still not 100%. And that's what he did on that. I mean, that's a 6-week injury, right?
Yes. And so what was the percent then?
And he spent 6 plays. He took 6 plays off.
What about when it got re-injured and we all, I think, I'm speaking for all of Kansas City, when we all pooped our pants briefly?
Yes.
It was terrifying. It wasn't just one injury and then hopping around. There was an aggravation that we all saw. And then they won the Super Bowl like an hour and a half later.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we can go back and look at all the different draft profiles and read up on them. How many of them may have said his toughness is Rocky-esque? That just pain can sort of just like put away and no, you're not taking me out of this game. I can't move or put weight on this ankle.
Right.
But you're not taking me out of this game. I'm going to keep playing. And then for the next week to play against the Bengals, and we know how bad it was. And then for the final play of that game to run for the first down and to be so brilliantly fast enough yet slow enough at the same time for Jermaine Pratt to hit him out of bounds. I mean, it's brilliant. That's what makes him one of the best quarterbacks that's ever lived, and the best in the game is that he was able to see that, judge that, and the modem inside his head is able to compute and see distance, rate of speed for Pratt, and then how to slow down. It was great. It was very smart of him to be able to do that. And then a couple of weeks later against the Eagles, and then to re-injure it, tweak it against the Eagles, and still do what he did in the second half, and then have another long run.
Here's the problem, okay? Here's where I completely fail at this job, one of many places. I think sometimes we got to be able to try to explain things to people so you can understand why stuff is happening. Part of the job, I think. I don't really think Patrick Mahomes is tougher than the entirety of the rest of the NFL. That seemed like a crazy thing to say just because the NFL is full of, I think, exclusively extremely tough people. And then within that exclusive group, human beings who are just routinely doing stuff that you could not even imagine. Okay, so is Patrick Mahomes just like the toughest dude in the National Football League by a mile? That seems impossible. Okay, well, so is Patrick Mahomes just less affected by injuries than everybody else? Well, I don't know that. I mean, how many of his ligaments are all different? We have the kneecap and now the ankle. Like, is he genetically different in his tendons? That seems impossible. but like great players. Tom Brady, for example, lost a season to an ACL because there are injuries you can't just play through.
Nothing you can do.
So certain levels of greatness, you could be incredible and still super tough and still weirdly healthier on that injury than anyone should be able to. And even if you're the best of the best, is Patrick Mahomes just better than everyone else even when he's hurt? Well, that seems impossible.
Well, it's even
and that's the end of my list. That's the end of my list. I don't know.
Well, it's even like, not just as we talk about the toughness to play through the pain, it's the performance to go along with that.
Right. Being excellent nonetheless.
Being the Super Bowl MVP while playing on the one ankle, that 10 weeks later is still not 100%. When he won the Super Bowl MVP and performed the way that he did in the second half. Like, you're right. The NFL is littered with players that are extremely tough and pain tolerance greater than anybody here that's probably working at the station outside of those that have played Major League Sports. So,
but also they're all in the prime of like their rehab and their training.
True.
They are all 365 days out of the year preparing for the fact that eventually a 350-pounder is going to land on their ankle weird. Everyone knows that in the NFL.
Right. It's not a matter of if, but when.
Right.
Now, as far as the draft is concerned and moving forward and things like that, we hear that his ankle is still not 100%. I have said, and I'll continue to say when it comes to the draft, I would not be opposed if every single year the Chiefs took an offensive lineman in the first 3 rounds. Yeah. If it's just by principle alone.
Yeah.
First rounder, second rounder, third rounder, if every single draft they come away with an offensive lineman of some sort, perfectly fine with that. You get to a point to where you say, all right, he's played 5 years in the NFL. And he had the bad ankle injury, which eventually healed because he had the knee that was a dislocated kneecap. So luckily the ankle was able to heal. It's one of those, oh, your pinky hurts? Here, let me see your arm. Oh, I just broke your elbow. Guess what? You're not worried about your pinky anymore, are you? No, I'm not. You're not worried about that ankle, are you? Why? Because your kneecap is on the other side of your knee. So maybe the ankle, you know what? Maybe you should appreciate it. All you had was an ankle injury. So he's had that.
Is that what they did to Bubich?
That's exactly what they did to Bubich. That's correct.
Bad strategy.
The foot injury that he said was worse, that he had to have surgery on already. Then you've got this ankle injury that is still not 100%. Those things start to add up. Like while he's really good at avoiding sacks, he does take hits.
Yeah.
And he doesn't take hits when he's running the football. He typically gets out of bounds or slides. Rarely ever, we'll get hit, running around, when he's actually running the football for yards as opposed to just getting outside the pocket, things like that. But you do start to sort of accumulate those things over time. And it's like, okay, so if this ankle happens and the flexibility or the swelling and there's not as much soreness now after workouts as there was before, okay, you lose a couple percent range of motion in your ankle there, your right knee, a couple percent here or there, your other ankle that you had an issue with, back in 2019, maybe a little bit there. Your toe, you've already had to have that surgically repaired with turf toe, so maybe it's a lot of stuff with his feet.
Yep.
Ankles and stuff like that are going on with Patrick Mahomes that you start to look at, the emphasis of, maybe you should just go ahead and go tackle in the first round and take somebody that can play right away instead of saying, you know what, I feel pretty good about Lucas Niang playing right tackle. And Jawan Taylor playing left, who has never played left tackle. Mm-hmm. Played right tackle at Florida, played right tackle for the Jags. Well, I feel pretty good about Lucas Niang at right tackle and Jawan Taylor at left tackle. Okay, well, I might feel better about Anton Harrison at right tackle and Jawan Taylor at left with the guard-to-guard that they have there, knowing that Mahomes should be 100% by training camp with an ankle injury. You just don't want to have that happen and continue to happen as he ages.
Right.
And it's, you start to look at the age, and 30 is right around the corner from Mahomes, which I just shuddered for a little bit.
You wouldn't have said that.
Chills. Protecting him becomes more important than putting a premier stud star receiver on the outside until you have to move on from Kelsey. Then you're going to need to find somebody there.
Why did you make this segment so bad at the end?
Sorry.
Usually when we do that, it's by accident. I feel like you just sabotaged it on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. How do you know I don't do it on purpose typically?
It's a totally fair point. Patrick Mahomes is 27, everybody. You don't have to panic yet, including myself, who's 1 year older than Patrick Mahomes. It means 30 is around the corner.
What have you done in your life?
You know what I've done? I've kept my kneecaps where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, take that, Patrick. And you've probably made $1 billion less.
More or less. Something around that.
He hasn't even made $1 billion. I'm just saying that you're, in the red.
That also, there's something else Patrick and Mahomes and I have in common. We're in the red. Just financially for me, uniform for him.
Yes, and can be in any red car he wants.
Yeah,
can paint his football field red. Whatever he wants to do. Red everything. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back, wrap up the show next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.